Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Wednesday, March 14th, 2018 meeting of the Chappaqua Central School District Board of Education. The board has been in executive session discussing negotiations and matters regarding the employment of particular individuals. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Jeffrey Mester.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so I think we just had the Pledge of Allegiance outside of the public meeting. So may I have a motion to reconvene the public meeting?
So moved. I'll second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. I'd like to move that we accept the previous budget.
So I'd like to start off by saying that we're sorry that we missed last week's March 7th board meeting. We missed it because of a snow date, and that was supposed to be the day of the presentation of the Superintendent's Report. So today we'll have a condensed or an augmented version. We'll have that meeting plus two other budget presentations. So we're combining two meetings in one, but hopefully not increasing the time of the length of this meeting by the length of two full meetings. So first I'd like to start off by thanking all of our staff and our town agencies for their help in the response to the storms, the two storms that we weathered back to back. I know that it was very hard for a lot of people in this community. They were blocked in by trees and power lines, and school was out for a number of days. So I want to thank also our parent community for cooperating with the schools and for managing your kids at home all those days. I want to thank Christine, who was up late at nights and up again at 4:30 in the morning, monitoring the roads and information. I want to thank John and Joe Gramando and the entire facilities staff for an incredible job. The folks on our facility staff are here round the clock. Sometimes they sleep here if they need to, but they did a tremendous job in opening our schools so they could be safe for our kids. I want to thank Lisa Elsner, our district clerk, for taking all of the phone calls and fielding a lot of phone calls for our schools when power was down. So thank you, Lisa. I want to thank our town, Robert Greenstein and Jill Shapiro, for working really well with our administration, and also the Department of Public Works and Chappaqua Transportation. I want to thank Judy and Seth Corwin for being out there driving and monitoring the side roads. Sometimes when the main roads look okay, even if your own street looks okay, you have to know that some of your neighbors' streets are completely impassable, and we really don't want anyone to get hurt or injured, because that would be more terrible than a snow day. So I really want to thank, it's a whole huge collaborative effort that goes on. So thank you, everyone. And I'd like to add that I know that the town, or people have been talking about the town updating an emergency plan, and I just want to say that the school is ready and willing to partner with the town on any updates of their emergency planning procedures. So now I want to turn to another topic. I want to acknowledge today the National Student Walkout. I know that there are many different opinions on it. And I'm not sure that I have consensus on the board even for saying anything about it. So I will just say as an individual that I believe that this is really a pivotal moment for us when we see students taking charge of what is happening in their own classrooms, because the adults have been unable to keep them safe from school gun violence. So I think that from a school district perspective, we have to stay neutral on what the students are doing. Today was about student voice. I know that adults are very passionate too, but this was about listening to our students. And I just want to say from my own individual perspective that I was very proud of how our students conducted themselves today. They expressed themselves, and they did so respectfully and peacefully. And let's hope that they feel that their voices have been heard. So before I move on to this proposed resolution on the agenda, if anyone has anything else they'd like to say, you're welcome to say it. Okay. So we have a proposed resolution that was drafted by the Westchester Putnam School Boards Association, and it's been sent to school districts who have the option of revising the resolution or deciding not to pass it at all. So I know that you've all received it and have all read it. And I have no idea who's in agreement with it, but I thought that the easiest way to proceed was for me to just give a quick synopsis of each paragraph to see if anyone has an objection. I mean, first of all, is there an objection to entertaining this resolution at all? And we can go paragraph by paragraph and see whether there's consensus on the different points.
Who drafted this?
Does that make sense?
Who drafted this?
This was drafted by Lisa Davis of the Westchester Putnam School Boards Association. This is something that's typically done by the association whenever there are issues of concern to our local school districts. And so the organization drafts resolution templates that school districts are then free to adopt as written or revise or not adopt at all.
And this was sent to all the
This
board
was
that
sent
in
to all
Westchester
school
Putnam.
boards in Westchester and Putnam. And a number of them have passed the resolution already.
The way it is or with modifications?
I'm not sure. I have not read all the individual ones, but I think that they've been passed in substantially the form that it's in. There may have been some minor modifications. So it starts off by establishing, there are all these whereas clauses, establishes that safety of our children is paramount, that there's been a proposed 5% reduction to the federal education budget, which would include $425 million of dollars in cuts to mental health and school safety programs. It acknowledges the deaths of students and staff members who were killed in Parkland, Florida. It acknowledges the number of students who have been injured and shot and the number of school shootings across our country in the past 5 years. There have been 439 students who have been shot and more than 239 school shootings across our country. It acknowledges a need for greater access to mental health services for students and families. It establishes a belief that every child has the right to a safe school environment and an appropriate level of security as determined by the community. It says that we believe that there should be a reasoned and rational approach to gun control and increase access to mental health services. We would acknowledge that we foster civic discourse and promote student understanding of government and current issues. We believe that a coordinated effort at the federal and state level is needed to change the paradigm and protect our communities and our schools. And now we get to the therefore clauses, which are more of the action clauses, that we call upon the New York State Assembly and Senate and Governor to implement a reasoned and rational approach to address gun control and background checks and prioritize funding and resources for increased access to mental health services. And that we would resolve that federal and state leaders take immediate action to provide additional funding to schools for adequate mental health, social and guidance services for prevention, support, and response, to provide funds for districts to upgrade facilities, safety audits if there's a need for improvement, provide funding for security personnel as determined by the local school district, and enact reasonable and rational and reasonable gun control measures. And we affirm that the students who have engaged in engaged civically in protests should be heard, and that school districts, that we would oppose any reductions in federal state funding that would cut mental health or school safety programs. And there's another resolution that we call upon the governor, the state assembly, and the state senate to address gun violence and provide support for local public school districts to promote school safety. So, I didn't hear any calls to stop and revise as I was going along. Did anyone take notes?
The only paragraph I don't agree with is the paragraph that says resolve the Board of Education of Chappaqua Central School District affirms the civic engagement of students in Parkland, Florida and beyond. We're speaking out for school safety support, mental health services, and legislation to address gun control or gun violence needs to be heard. I think it's just and beyond to exercise their First Amendment rights.
This is in the second page?
Second page, right?
Right. Okay, so I think what that's, I think it's a very wordy paragraph, and what it's simply saying is that the students should be heard.
That's right. They should be able to exercise their First Amendment rights. We as a district should not be getting into discussions of what we feel is an appropriate protest.
Oh, but that's not what this paragraph
It
is
is. It's
saying. It's saying that, it's basically saying that our representatives at the state level and at the federal level should hear the voices of students.
Right, that they have the right to speak
So why
out.
don't we say that?
First Amendment right. Why we have
Well,
to...
we could change the paragraph to say that. We could
Right.
change it to say anything. I think it's a very wordy way of saying what I just said.
Okay.
All right, let's change it to what you just said.
Okay.
What do you propose? What were you proposing, Mark?
It says, resolve that the Board of Education of Chappaqua Central School District affirms that the civic engagement of students in Parkland, Florida and beyond are able to exercise their First Amendment rights.
Okay, but what this is saying is not quite that. It's saying that when they exercise their First Amendment rights,
It's civil engagement.
that they should be heard. I mean, it doesn't say that you have to agree with them or disagree with them. It's just saying that we're hopeful that our representatives will hear their voices. That's what that's
Isn't
saying.
that
We
implied?
can take it out.
Yeah.
mean,
I just don't
you
think
know,
it's very, I mean, look, as a
Not useful.
whole, I don't think that these resolutions do very much.
Right, that was my
No,
question in terms
they-
of like
you know-
what change does it generally serve? Like when we've in the past,
Right.
and you may know this more than I would in terms of these resolutions, do they
Well,
have to change?
when a whole group of school boards are saying the same thing, it does have an impact. And in addition to that, when things occur in society, should school boards remain silent because their voices might not affect change?
I'm not advocating
So
not doing
No,
that. I'm
I-
just,
right.
So that's the thing, you know, individuals can ask themselves the same question. Does it matter that I should go out and vote because I'm only one person? And the
No.
answer is an emphatic
No, it's
yes.
not the same as an
It
individual
matters.
doing
That's
it.
an analogy that I'm making to the question. So does it make a difference whether Chappaqua passes a resolution like this in the grand scheme of things? Maybe. Maybe it does.
School boards have a very specific function. It's very different from an individual board member who wishes to speak out as an individual. It's my opinion, and after 11 years of passing these sort of things, it's mental masturbation.
I think, Vicki, if I may, and I understand what Warren is saying, I think that paragraph that talks about the Board of Education affirming the civic engagement of students in Parkland, Florida, I don't think we should be affirming their civil engagement. I do think it's wordy. I think we could potentially change that to say that that the Board of Education of Chappaqua affirms the right of our student body to speak out, affirms their First Amendment right to speak out for student safety, et cetera,
For
et cetera.
student-
Yes.
whatever they want to speak out about.
Right. I think we're
Right.
just saying
Right,
we affirm
right.
their right to
To speak.
for civic engagement and to speak out in support of. I mean, we can
And to
maybe
exercise their
change that
First Amendment
and
rights.
exercise their First Amendment
We could
rights
say
because
that.
we
It's
as a
saying
board
something different,
we
but
want
I
to
think
say
we
that
can
we're
say that.
supporting their right to speak out.
Jane, can you just read that exactly as you're suggesting it be
Oh,
written?
okay,
so we
now I
have
have
it
to
correct?
remember exactly what I said.
You articulated much better than I.
Let- we just-
Resolved that the Board of Education of the Chappaqua Central School District affirms the right of its students to speak out for school safety, support mental health services, and legislation to address gun violence. We can say in furtherance of their First Amendment rights, or in accordance with their First
I would
Amendment
take
rights.
out health services, legislation to address gun violence, because what if they want to speak out against something else?
That's all First Amendment. We're
How
not
about
talking
if we
about
say-
content. We're talking about their right to
Right.
speak out.
So how about
We
if
have-
we
we have
say,
content in there.
resolve that the Board of Education of the Chappaqua Central School District recognizes,
The First Amendment rights.
recognizes students' First Amendment rights.
To speak out for this,
I mean,
because they have First
It just
Amendment
seems
rights to
silly.
speak out for
Like,
anything.
It just seems superfluous.
But we're-
Like, we're
I mean, we don't
Right.
really need, we don't
Take
really,
the
we
paragraph
don't
out.
really
that
need
we're going to
this
withhold the
paragraph.
Constitution. Like,
We
it just
we
seems
don't
like
really, we don't really,
Yeah.
I mean, we know that they have their First Amendment rights and that
Right.
they exercise them. So I'm not sure that we need this
But we're
paragraph.
asking them to
If
listen.
it's becoming a little bit controversial,
Yeah.
for
It's not even controversial. It seems like
it
Duh.
does seem superfluous.
it seems
so
like duh, right? So
I could take it out.
yeah.
Well, if we're doing that, in the bullet points above, the last bullet point is we're making a value judgment on that, which, I may or may not agree with. But-
Wait, let's just finish this one.
Oh, okay. I thought we took it out.
I still would
Do you-
prefer keeping it
You
in.
want to keep it in? Okay.
Because I think I prefer saying, which we know, we are just allowing the students to exercise their First Amendment rights.
Just a simple suggestion, resolve that the Board of Education of the Chappaqua Central School District affirms our students who are speaking out for the safety, support for mental health services and legislation to, just affirming that, just put our students in there. Instead of, and taking out the Parkland part.
Right, we can take out,
Just put, affirms that our students who are speaking out against school safety, mental health services, and legislation to address gun violence need to be heard. Right?
yeah,
Just
we
take
can
out,
say compounds need,
just put our
Just
students and take
substitute
out
the
that
cover.
second,
affirms
just take
that
out, yeah, affirms that our
our
students
that
who,
Who are speaking out?
yeah, just
Okay.
take out the whole civil,
our students who are speaking out
yeah.
need to be heard, and get rid of the S.
What do we do when the students want to speak out against something that we don't agree with?
They're
we
still
write-
allowed to
do-
speak out.
Do we
That's
write
the
a
First
resolution?
Amendment.
Do we write a resolution like this to send up to the Albany also?
If we want to,
If we could.
if we want to.
If we want to, but why?
We could
Why
propose
is
it.
this? Pardon me?
So, because Vicky proposed it, that's why it's on, and she put it on the agenda.
Okay.
Anyone could put a resolution
Okay.
on the agenda.
Now, I don't know if that's true,
I think
but we could ask you to
I,
do it.
I think you, well, yes.
right.
Can I just, I want to make sure I have this correctly. Resolve that the Board of Education of the Chappaqua Central School District affirms that our students who are speaking out for school safety, support for mental health services, and legislation to address gun violence need to be heard. Period. Okay?
Right, just a comma after gun violence, maybe,
Yeah.
need to be heard.
Lisa, do you have that?
Yes, I agree with the comma. Okay,
I'm fine with that.
okay. Everyone okay?
No,
With that paragraph?
I'm not okay with that. I think it's superfluous. I don't think we should be telling the students that they have the right to speak. We don't have to tell them they have the right to
We're
speak.
not telling the students though. Right? This isn't going to the students. This is going to the legislatures.
Right.
And the legislature should understand the students have the right to speak and they should be listened to.
They should understand all of this without us
That's
having
the
to
job.
say.
Right,
I think that's the point.
that's right.
This
That's
is to
right.
make a statement that we want our students to be heard. And I think that's what the school districts are
About
trying
this
to do.
about the specific topic. Again, what about other topics?
We can bring a resolution at that
We feel
point.
that this is a righteous topic. What about topics that the community and the administration, building administrators don't agree with?
Is it fair, Warren, that maybe this
That's
is
why
a
we
little
vote.
different because they're trying to reduce our funding, when really everything in society is pointing to the fact that we might need more funding to support our kids? Maybe that is what makes this a little different? than something else? Because that's how it starts.
And also, the whole issue is about what's happening to students in their schools. So it's not, students can advocate for any issue they want, but this is about safety in their schools. So that's where I see the difference here. But in any event, I'm not sure how we want to resolve. So we have one person who doesn't agree with a paragraph
But you have two
in
people.
the resolution.
If you're including him as one, then I'm two.
Okay.
If I'm one, maybe he's two.
Okay, so you have an objection
We
to
we
this
have one
paragraph.
of those shirts.
I'm with him.
So you have an objection to this paragraph as well?
At least that paragraph.
Okay. So do we want to take out that paragraph? Because it is superfluous. We know that students have their First Amendment rights. Okay, so let's go through any other objections and see where we stand with the whole resolution.
All right, my other objection is the last bullet point on the same page.
To enact rational and reasonable gun control measures.
It's a value judgment, as if we don't have rational and reasonable gun control measures. I'm very confident it's absolutely illegal to shoot somebody. Without,
Okay.
not in self-defense.
I don't think that's what that's saying, though.
But what is it saying? It's saying it doesn't like the laws we have, and we should have different laws.
No.
I think what it's saying is pretty,
It's saying that we
it
we
speaks
have
for itself.
irrational and unreasonable measures in place now.
That is the implication of that.
Right.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. Okay.
I just don't think it's a value judgment. I may actually agree that we need different laws, but I just think it's a value judgment. The Board of Education is getting into the political arena where it ought not be.
Okay. All right, how does everyone else feel about that?
I can go either way on that. I understand Jeffrey's point. I mean, and I think that's my point. At a certain point,
Too many points.
too many points. I know we're a political entity. We try to be apolitical, but we shouldn't be inserting ourselves. I mean, I had a whole statement here. I'm not going to read it. I think what the kids did today was great. Personally, as a board member, I have concerns. I think protest is a wonderful thing. As a board member, I have concerns about where it leads.
Okay. Well, I think that elsewhere in this resolution, we say that we believe that children have the right to safe school environments.
Absolutely.
Um,
And later on in the
And an
meeting,
appropriate levels of
we're going to be
security.
talking about safe school environments.
I think the whole resolution may be problematic. I mean, there's language in other paragraphs about gun control. I mean, if that's the position that we want to be neutral, then we need to relook at this.
I think maybe we table
Entire
this and
resolution.
discuss it. I think we should. So that
Okay.
maybe we could craft it where it's appropriate. And in terms of, I think, I know
Or
we all.
we could take out references to gun control.
I'm not
And-
against gun
and pass.
control. I just think that we're painting a broad brush here as a school district.
I actually have no problem with the first reference on page 1 to gun control, just stating a whereas, a reasonable rational approach. I mean, that may mean we have one, or may mean we need a different one, I don't know. It's that one, it's the one on the second
Okay.
page, and then there's another one, which I think we got rid of, taking out the paragraph under it.
Okay. So I'm just wondering if everyone would be, I'm just trying to move on,
Yeah.
you know? And so I'm wondering if everyone would be okay with the resolution if we take out the paragraph about First Amendment rights, because that's self-evident, and take out the last bullet on enacting.
Can we just table it till next week? Let us read through it, and maybe we can write down some ideas.
Okay, then.
Because
All
I
right.
mean,
I don't know that
Okay.
there's a sense of
Yeah.
urgency that we do it this week versus next
No,
week.
I'm just trying to move on and not
Right.
have
Right.
to
'cause I'm thinking of language that I
revisit
think
this
might
and
be more
read.
agreeable, but still makes the point.
That's fine.
That's not,
That's
like,
fine.
Jeffrey, as you say, as, subjective.
I didn't
Okay,
agree with
I
that.
have no objection
You said-
to that.
But I'll
Table it
send
till
you,
we use
so,
language
you
that's
can circulate it.
subjective
Yeah.
next week.
I think that's, in the interest of moving on, I think that would make the most sense, so people could perhaps edit this and put it in a way that we are really reflecting our support of the civic engagement
Okay.
and students wanting to feel safe in their schools and being able to make a statement in support of that.
Okay, but that's not, I just have to say, that's not exactly moving on, because we'll be looking at this and working on this and not really
Well, I
moving
think
on. But I have no objection to doing that.
I move we table item 1.1.2.
Okay, all right, and I'll second that, I'll second that.
1.1.3.
Oh, I'm looking at an old version.
1.1.4.
1.1.4.
I second that we table item 1.1.4.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. Okay, so we will move on to, we are tabling item 1.2. We had recognition, 1.2, we had recognition of a BOCES student who was unable to attend.
Maybe next week.
Maybe next week.
0 for 3.
I know.
Okay, so we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
Okay, so there are really 4 sections of the superintendent's report tonight. Our first is, I'd like to announce the appointment and introduce Dr. Pease to the community, so I do that first. Then, second, we'll do our budget presentations. And then after that, I'll talk a little bit about the district calendar. And then embedded in the agenda are some resolutions to address some safety and security issues. So John and I had discussed that as those resolutions are moved to be on the table, at those point we'll facilitate the discussions, just so we can all, we just think it'll be clearer for the community if we do it in that way. So is everyone okay if we structure the superintendent's report that way?
Yeah.
That sounds
Great.
good. Yeah.
So, good evening, everyone. To begin by introducing Dr. Adam Pease, who's in the front here, to the Board of Education for appointment tonight as our new Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction to begin this July. So, I just wanted to talk a little bit about our process. So currently, Adam, as a candidate, is serving in the same capacity in MAPAC, and he's been in this role since 2016. He began his career as a teacher, a science teacher at John Jay High School in Katona. And in 2003, he was named the house principal for Mayapack High School and then became the principal in 2008. He rose to the top during a thorough and wide-ranging search process. Over the last 6 weeks, we had about 101 applicants for our position, and he met with various committees, various community members, had site visits in our district, and we had a site visit at his district, and we were able to ascertain through that process that Adam possesses a strong background in redesigning instructional spaces to foster authentic, student-centered collaboration, creation, and differentiation. He employs a professional development philosophy that supports teacher creativity, innovation, empowerment, and motivation, which makes him an excellent match to advance our own vision and goals for teaching and learning in Chappaqua. He was highly regarded by his colleagues, highly regarded. Deeply committed to flexible learning spaces in our in the classrooms in Mayapack, infusing technology throughout the curriculum, and creating a school community that is collaborative, reflective, and meets the needs of all learners. He's well-versed in the latest research and instructional practices, conveys a wealth of knowledge from varied experiences, and his work has been nationally recognized by District Administration magazine. He grew up in Somers, graduated from Carmel High School, received a BA in science with an advanced certificate in school administration from Mercy, holds a master's degree in science education, and a doctoral degree in educational leadership from Teachers College at Columbia University. He and his wife, who's also a teacher, have 2 daughters, and he lives in Brewster. And I'd like you to please join me in welcoming Dr. Pease to our district. And, before I ask Dr. Pease to make a few comments, I wanted to give the board an opportunity, because you've all been involved in the process at some level, if you'd want to share any thoughts about.
I'm just happy he's still sitting here after listening to that.
Very
I would love to say that as part of the being a part of the interview process, which was great. I think all of us were very much impressed by Adam's wealth of knowledge on all matters, great and small. I think everyone will find him to be a very engaging personality. And I personally was very impressed by, I'll borrow a Seinfeldian term to say, his unbridled enthusiasm for a lot of things. And I just think he will bring a really, really great sense of purpose and interest and a new friendly face to our community.
I'd like to add, I was part of the interview process with Jane. I reiterate what she said. I also got a chance to see Adam in the wild before he make a presentation at a West Putt meeting. I was impressed then, and even more impressed when I got to meet him personally.
I'd just like to thank you for agreeing to come to our district. I met you, I guess, a week or so ago when you came in to meet the board, and I was totally impressed by, again, as Jane said, your breadth of knowledge, your enthusiasm, how you feel you want to work with our community and our district and move teaching and learning forward for us. So thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you.
I too was in that same meeting, and I am excited to have you here, excited for you to be another face at the board table, and know that you will thrive here and help our students continue to do so.
Well, I guess there's not a lot I can add to all that, but I want to say that I also saw you at that presentation early on in the year, and it was sort of a short form presentation given by many people, for about 5 to 7 minutes each. So there were a number of presentations on the use of active learning spaces and incorporating technology and, and all aspects of curriculum development. And I have to say, Adam rose to the top. Of all those presentations, I said, wow, who is that guy? Not really, having been engaged in the search process at that point in time. So, and we met again recently, and I want to say welcome to our community. This is a community that really cares about education like most other communities in this region. So we have a very engaged and active parent community, and so we are happy to welcome you here.
Thank you so much for joining us.
So I'd like to, at this point, move to item,
He should say that.
Would you like to?
Wait until we vote yes.
we're going to appoint him.
Yeah,
But it's part of the 4.1?
it's
So do we
the
move-
addendum, so we can move it to this point.
Okay,
On the agenda.
but it's an addendum to 4.1, so it's not numbered. Okay, well, I'd like to take the addendum to item 4.1 out of order and ask for a motion and a second to appoint Dr. Adam Pease to probationary appointment as Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction.
I
Should
enthusiasm.
I let you do that, Christine? This is an
Can't move.
instructional
I recommend it, so.
recommended, so.
I enthusiastically move that we accept the recommendation.
And I second it.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I would first recommend you adjust the microphone as you approach it, and then you can certainly share your thoughts. And welcome to Chappaqua.
I should play guitar. Can you hear me? Is this on?
Yes, it's good.
Okay, all right.
Perfect.
So let me start by thanking Dr. Ackerman and President Tipp and the entire board for your kind words and your confidence in me. I wanted to recognize Dr. Ackerman and also Dr. Sinha for making this search a continued priority, even though we struggled with the weather. We had several dates that we had to reschedule along the way, and I appreciate your dedication to continuing to move the process forward. As I entered the process, I made a commitment to myself to be true to my core values and beliefs and to leave it up to your teams of stakeholders to determine if these beliefs aligned with yours. And I'm so pleased tonight to hear that they do. During the process, I shared my belief that schools need to be safe, welcoming, exciting, and positive places filled with adults that are on a mission to make sure that every single child is successful. I shared my belief that students learn best when they're engaged in rigorous, collaborative, authentic activities that really matter to the world. I described my belief that all students don't learn in the same way at the same pace, and that we should structure our learning with these differences in mind. I shared how the future is so uncertain that we can't prepare students for something, and instead we should prepare students for anything. We should prepare them to be flexible and innovative, creative, scholarly, and ethical. I shared my belief that instructional spaces amplify learning only when they're flexible, technology-rich, well suited for students to ask provocative questions, tackle complex problems, and collaborate on authentic learning tasks. I was thrilled to be able to see some of these innovative spaces that you've built, and I even got to see one that was under construction. We talked about the challenges of designing curriculum which balances the need for students to have consistent experiences while giving teachers the latitude to enrich and remediate and explore topics of student interest. We talked about professional development systems that model quality instruction and give teachers voice and choice and inspire teachers and leaders to continue to grow. I know you know this, but high-performing school districts don't happen by accident. They're the result of hardworking students, involved parents, a supportive community, dedicated faculty members, strategic district and building leaders, an entire school community working together with the purpose of doing what's best for our young people. Using the results of your strategic coherence planning process, the board's strategic questions, and Dr. Ackerman's vision for Chappaqua as a guide, will chart a course to ensure that your students continue to receive a world-class education. Over the coming months, I'll spend time getting to know the people and places of Chappaqua and doing a lot of listening about what's working well and what might need some work. I'd like to extend an open invitation to the entire school community. As you see me around, please share your thoughts. They're welcome and they're appreciated. Thank you again for this opportunity. I couldn't be more proud to be the newest member of the Chappaqua leadership team. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you, and I would like to thank Assume for all of her assistance and really running our entire search process, and everyone who participated to help us select Adam. So we're very fortunate. Okay, so we'll move into the budget presentation.
Very exciting.
And it's extraordinarily exciting, and John has spent a lot of time with his office and with the administrative team putting together a budget that we are really proud of. It moves us forward educationally, but it's also mindful of our responsibility to our residents fiscally. It's under the tax cap. And so our process is as followed. We'll be talking today through our overview. We have a special education and curriculum instruction budgets that will also be presented. And then we'll have 3 other board meetings where we'll talk more about different components of our budget for next year. And then we'll have a final presentation to the Board of Education in April where we'll be asking you to adopt the budget. So at this point, we're still fluid, so we'll take suggestions from the community, suggestions from the board as we move towards the final adoption in early April. This is a year-long process that we start early in the school year. It takes a lot of conversation and a lot of organization on behalf of John's office with our building level principals to make sure that we are adequately meeting our students' needs and providing the programs that are so important to this community. And our process is really a zero-based budgeting process. So in preparing this year, we keep in mind from a survey that was conducted before I got here that 95% of our taxpayers typically have a favorable opinion of the district. Almost 70% feel our taxes are a little too high. And then, but
Only 70%?
that's actually 69%. A little too high.
You didn't answer the question.
But 74% feel that if our quality of education declines, so are our property values. So again, our strategic questions, they guide our process. And then prior to my arrival, and I'm sure some of this will be adjusted moving forward, are the pillars of our school budgeting process. So our important components include class sizing, our program offerings, our infrastructure, and then our contractual obligations. And the reason I say things may adjust as we move forward with our strategic planning process is because our priorities may shift in our budgeting process based on what our community identifies as essential for our students. So then we're going to move forward with our operating standards. Again, these are the same as last year, but I anticipate moving forward as we move through our strategic planning process that we may see some modifications to these in the future that are reflective of the direction that our district determines to go as we develop that plan for the community. So I don't really want to read these standards to you because they're.
Right.
But again, they help us make sure that we're addressing the needs, the different operating needs of the district throughout the budgeting process.
I think you could read what's different. I think what you added about communication structures
So
is different, and that's good.
All right, so we definitely added some language to address the social, emotional well-being and health of our students. That's the second bullet. We added some language about having better communication structures because we know that's been important to this community over time. So we've embedded some of that into our budgeting process to make sure that we were meeting the needs of our community. And then on the next slide, we also added in one of the areas safety. So you'll see that they're outlined in red. Okay.
Okay.
So John?
So this is the slide that we talked about. As you can see on the title, it's as of January 10th, 2018. So when Christine presented the preview, and these are the things that we mentioned, that these are the items that we knew at that time. And I'm not going to go over the numbers. Basically, we have a slight decrease in elementary schools, but we have a larger increase in the middle schools and a decrease in high school. The reason I'm not going to go over that is because later on we're going to talk about the enrollment, so at that point you will see it. And we have 4 bargaining units. At this point, we only have 1 contract in place for the coming year, and the other 3 were in negotiations. So the contract that we have in place is for the administrators. So for the teachers, for the support staff, as well as for the custodial staff, we are negotiating. And the employee retirement system, there's a slight decrease, is not really meaningful because the decrease is 0.4%. And when you look at our employee structure, we only have about 16% of our salary is in the employee retirement system. And assessment growth factor I mentioned last time is a good news. We have a large increase. It's 1.34%. That will factor into the tax cap calculations. And our health insurance premiums for next year is actually much better than this year's number. This year really was very high. It was 8%. But next year is going to be 3.75%.
A raise of 3.7.
Increase.
Increase.
Yes, yes, they definitely increase. And it seems like a large number, 3.75. But if you look at the industry, we were dealing with much higher numbers. I think NISHIP, which is the New York State insurance program for all those state entities that do not belong to consortium or other health insurance, I think their increases, 8 or 9%, close to double digit. I'm not saying 3.75 is good.
Are we using any reserves to pay down part of that increase?
Yes.
How much?
I think.
How much of
probably-
the,
I know this year.
without the reserves, what would
I know this year we used 10 million. We're using 10 million. However, we are making adjustments to the program itself, the plan itself. We're increasing the copay, and also we are adjusting programs. In fact, this afternoon we have a board meeting, and we probably came up with another $500,000.
So John, just to clarify, I think for the community, we're not using 10 million, the consortium's using 10 million.
Yes, sorry. Coming back. We belong to a health insurance consortium. Is the Putnam
Thank you.
Northern Westchester Health Benefits Consortium. We have, I think, 12,000 members insured, and our budget is about over $100 million. And there are 14 school districts, including the BOCES, and we are all together as one plan.
and John, you're on the board of
Yes,
directors, education for them, whatever this board is?
on the board, yes.
So, and John, I think maybe we could talk about, I think we spoke about this last year. There are pretty much 3 ways you can do health insurance. You have a consortium, or you go through New York State, or you self-insure, correct?
You can't do that, right?
And we know from other districts that self-insuring is probably The most riskiest.
Yes, you can just look to our neighbor to the
Right.
east, north.
Right. And then, as you said, the consortium is more conservative. However, we've got a large enough population to spread that.
So we
risk.
spread the risk.
And New York State tends to be a little more expensive than we are.
That's right. That's correct.
To be clear, when you self-insure, that doesn't mean you're 100% self-insured. There's generally backup insurance over a certain I think it's a couple $1 million. So they're only risking, you say they're risking, they risk up to a certain point.
Okay, guys, I want to keep moving.
Yeah, we should,
We
yeah.
have a lot, no, it's fine to ask, but I just want to move along because we have a lot of presentations.
Okay.
So-
And equalization rates, we have the numbers, and the good news is that for the two towns, they are moving in the same direction. So that's one piece of
Chapcom,
good
that
news.
wasn't-
And the other part is that equalization rates are coming down. So what that really means is that the market value is going up very slightly, but there's an increase. So that's the good news. So this is the slides that we presented on January 10th. At that point, all these items are unknown to us. And since then, you can see we check off 4 items. And so we have numbers for TRS. Unfortunately, I cannot tell you that's good news because the TRS number actually is going up from 9.8% to 10.63%. And this will have a significant impact on our budget. And overall, the increase for this piece is 8.5%. And the reason is the market is performing, I see you're asking.
The last 5 years, the market's been doing
Yes, the market is doing well. However, they lowered the expected return rate from 8% to 7.5%. That 7.5% is still not achievable. However, they need to gradually lowering, but because of this drop, and therefore we all have to pitching more.
Is there a specific
Yes.
plan to continue dropping the rate?
I asked the question to the chief actuary person for TRS. He said not for the next 3 years.
John,
So-
how much of the tax cap, I'm sorry, go ahead, finish your
Sorry.
thought. I'm sorry, I
Go
didn't mean to
ahead.
interrupt. No, I have a question on another.
Okay, tax cap, we'll talk about it later.
Yeah, but I just wanted to know how much of the tax cap would the TRS increase plus the health increase take up?
Well, I think the question will be answered when we talk about the budget itself.
Okay.
Okay, I'll point that out. And we got the preliminary state aid, and so that's reflected in our projections. And then also the CPI for the tax cap calculation we have, that's for the calendar year 2017, and it's 2.13%, and therefore for the tax cap calculation it will be 2% because the law is 2% or CPI, whichever is lower, and the lower number is 2%. So when I show you the tax cap calculations, you will see is 2%. And also the next bullet is the tax cap number, we have it. So all the other items that are not checked off, we're using projections. Best guess, and these are the numbers that are in the budget. So we're coming back to talk about the budget. Ultimately, there are 3 items. It's always budget, tax levy, and tax rates. They are all interrelated, and we try to unfold this as we go into the budget. And on March 28th, hopefully by that time, we will have everything presented, and I hope all of you will get a very clear idea as far as how we get to the budget, how we get to the tax levy, how we get to the tax rates. So Christine's proposed budget is $122,559,988. This represents a 2.5% increase, and the dollar amount is 2.988 million increase. And this seems to be very high, but I just want to tell you, and later on I'll talk about it, because there's over $1 million in the debt service. And also, don't get concerned yet, because we did make a commitment with the new debt service. It will be tax levy neutral, so I'll explain that later. But in the budget itself, you have to add the debt service in there, and therefore you see the increase of 2.5%.
And what would the increase be without this debt
Okay,
service?
without the increase will be 1.64%. The
What's the
budget to
absolute
budget.
dollar? How much is the,
The debt service,
for this year, coming year?
the debt service is
Yeah.
out. You'll see it later. There's a slide just for that. I don't remember. It's over $1 million, slightly over $1 million.
$1,030,000, right?
$1,030,000. Okay,
About that.
$1,030,000. And just show you the last nine budget increases. And so we are at the 2.5% budget increase for the proposed budget 2018-19. And most recent 8 budgets, they are here. We have the budget. Coming back to the three items, we have budget, tax levy, we have tax rates. And I know they are not legible, so this is the larger numbers. So when you look at the last 8 budget, really there are 7 increases. The budget-to-budget increase is 1.45%, and the tax levy increase is 1.46%. My recollection is last year, the budget-to-budget increase, the average was 1.33. This year's budget, because it increased 2.5%, really just brings that number up. So I think this particular slide really tells the story about Chappaqua versus all our neighbors, because I look at this as this is the per pupil cost. The per pupil cost, Jeff, you will see the next slide.
I know, it's hard to see. It's very tiny.
But I want to stay here for just a minute, and you will see a larger number. This is a straight using the total budget divided by total
Number of students.
and that is just a per pupil cost. And you take into every scenarios. All the students are in there, all the costs are in there, and this is just a straightforward per pupil cost. And I think this is really talk about performance versus expenditures.
In what way?
Performance is when we rank. These are all our neighboring districts, all in Westchester and Putnam counties, and that's think about the performance in your head. I'm sure you know where we are, and then I'm going to tell you where we rank in the expenditures. So based on this slide alone, we rank number 12. But I do want to point out one thing is that there are some school districts are missing here. And for example, Briarcliff Manor, Greenberg, Henhud, and very possibly Harrison. I think they will be higher than us if they have reported out their numbers. They are missing. So if you add those, last year, we are 16 out of 46. There are 46 school districts in Putnam County and Westchester County. And last year we ranked 16 when it comes to expenditure per pupil out of 46. This year we ranked 12. But if you add the other 4 school districts into it, if they have their numbers there, we will be number 16 also, again. Now, Jeff, this is the one that you can see. So these are the ranking of the 12 that we have. And again, we don't have Briarcliff Manor, we don't have Greenberg, we don't have Henhud, and we don't have Harrison's number in there. And these are the numbers I think, you recognize quite a few of our immediate neighbors. And so we are number 12 per pupil cost.
John, do we have a slide that shows what percentage of our tax levy is paid by commercial and what percentage is paid by residential versus all the other districts?
Compared to other school districts? I don't have that slide, but that's the true value cost. Yeah. Okay, so here is the expenditures. We always put it in these major categories. I hope you can see it. So salaries, there's an increase of 1.55. I'm just going to highlight the major items, and then as we go on to the next couple budget presentations, either today or future days, we will talk about it more. And then here we'll see the employee benefits. You see an increase of 4.54%. And this is where the TRS comes into place, the TRS increase, and then also the health insurance. And the increase is over $1 million, $1.1 million. And then also transportation is 2.29%. I'm using the CPI number of 2.25% because there's no cap. And if we want to maintain our contract, it will be using the CPI increase. But the CPI increase earlier, we said we don't know because we have to use the June 2017 to May 2018 numbers. I will not know that until June 15th. So, but I'm just doing a best guess. I use 2.25%. Probably that's on the low side, but that's the number we have. And then also here you probably think that Joe is the hero because his budget is going down by 5.74.
Joe's always the
Joe is a hero, right?
I know, because I'm so glad I'm not doing the presentation with him because he always have videos, pictures, and whatever, and jokes. But the reason he has a decrease of 5.74 is because
Reduction of 475.
that's exactly it. Because his budget is going down $475,000 because that was the commitment. Coming back to Jane, I think you had a question regarding that. When we presented the bond, we made a commitment to the community that the bond will have no tax levy
consequences.
impact on the taxpayers. And basically, we have five ways to do it. And we have to use all 5 of them. So the first one is the easiest one, is that we have state aid, the building aid. Our rate is at 33.6%. Unfortunately, the state aid, the building aid is on a lag. So we don't have it factored into it yet.
Okay.
So we don't see it yet, but it will come into play next year. So that's the first one. The second one is that we made a commitment to reduce the interfund transfer for capital projects from $575,000 to $100,000. And that is in his budget. That is in the operations and maintenance budget. So there's a decrease of $475,000.
So there's actually an increase of 145,000. If he's only
Can you
going down
explain the
330.
interfund transfer? Can you explain that? Like
Right.
how that nets out that way?
Okay, so what that is, that interfund transfer, what that means is that every year we identify capital projects.
Right.
Okay, and then when you do capital projects, we have to transfer the money from the general fund into the capital project funds.
Right.
And we are saying that we would transfer less. It makes sense. The reason is because with the bond, we're doing a lot of projects already.
Bond projects through that, so, okay.
And then therefore his budget is going down. But there's a reason why the budget also, I know you're talking about net position has gone up. The security guards is in his budget. And we added, first of all, there's an increase every year because we go to the state contract. But second thing is that in this budget, we added 3 security guards. Okay. And therefore you see the net is not a total reduction of 475. The debt service, you see a very large increase because there's a $1 million increase. I'll go back later on, I'll show you the exact dollar amount. What else I want to talk about? And then with special education, Heidi is going to present it very shortly. And the technology, Josh will present it next week, so I'm not going to steal his presentation. So that is all that add up to the 2.5% budget to budget increase. So we do look at it from another way, is what is the percentage that each category represent of the total budget. And I think the story here is that when I look at personnel as the first 2 items, the salaries plus the employee benefits, they shifted a little bit, but when you look at the total, it's still 74.1%. And this is a service industry, and therefore the cost of employees is the largest chunk of our budget. Okay? So I'll spend some time here. even though we'll go over this category on March 28th, that's the date that we talk about revenues, tax levies, and tax rates. So here are the numbers for the categories for our revenues. How do we come up to this number? If you look at our budget, you know, when we look at the budget, the total budget is $122 million, $122.6 million. So when we do the revenue, we have to have a balanced budget. So our total revenue has to come up to $122,559,988. And all these categories, from state aid all the way down to miscellaneous revenues, they are all pretty much known to us because we already have the governor's proposed budget for state aid. We have a proposal for appropriation of fund balance, and we are projecting the tax revenue, that's the sales tax, and then also the charges for services. We pretty much have an idea. The largest number in the charges for services is actually continuing education. And use of money and property, we can project, and the miscellaneous. So all these categories, from state aid all the way down to miscellaneous, they're all known to us, pretty much know. So we put the numbers in, and then we need a balanced budget, so we use the 122 million minus the total of these numbers, we come to 109 million. That's how we come to the tax.
John, the appropriation of fund balance last year, we approved of $2 million.
That's correct.
How much did we actually use?
We don't know until June 30th.
How much do you project we're going to use?
We probably will use a small amount. I think that's a little bit too early to know, but as time goes on, we'll keep you informed. But that's how we come to the 109 million for the property taxes. That number is really back into it. We have everything else, and then we have the total budget, and then we subtract everything else, and then come to 109. And now, this is the other way to look at it is each category represents the percentage of the budget. And you will see the property taxes, the percentage is actually lower. The reason is because we used appropriations of fund balance. And the interesting thing is that that's also property taxes. So if you look at the two of them combined, the real property taxes plus appropriation, the percentage is exactly the same.
Say that again?
No, it's not. Oh, yes, it is.
Say,
Okay, this is the place we talked about.
Fund balance is taxes previously collected, so it's just given.
This is the place, coming to Jeff's question, the debt service. I didn't put it up there, but the debt service is $1 million. This is for the $16 million that we have borrowed. The payment for next year is $1,030,818. So here we're talking about where we're going to get all the money. So I don't think I finished talking about the last the 5 items. So we are talking about state aid. We're talking about what else did we talk about? And using the interfund transfer.
interfund transfer.
And then also we talked about selling our property, but that hasn't happened yet because we are still in the with the planning board, so we don't have that piece yet. And then also we talked about the possibility of using fund balance. We haven't sold the property. And the last item is during 2023-24, our the old debt service would drop 1.7 million. That's how we put the whole package together to come up to pay for the debt service. So this year, out of those 5 items, we're using the reduction of interfund transfer. That's $475,000, and then also we're using the fund balance of $555,818. When you add that together, is our debt service of $1,030,818. Okay. And so here we have the enrollment history and our projections. I just want to tell you the projection for 18-19, those numbers included the Summit Greenfield, the Cupola building, and then also the downtown Conifer development. We have put some number in there for 18-19 for these two. The reason is because the Cupola building, we think is, the occupancy has been moved from February 1st to March 1st. I don't think anyone has moved in yet, but I think it's going to be soon. I definitely know they have accepted all the applications already. And then also the Conifer, when I talked to the town planner, she's talking about opening January 2019. So these two projects definitely will impact enrollment of 18-19.
If they accepted all the applications, do we know what the residential population is going to be?
Student
No,
population.
but I don't know whether they have selected. They have
So we
all the
don't know what the
applications.
So
They
they
make
have
up
the
is-
applications, but they haven't selected it.
I don't know.
Okay.
But last time when I talked to Sabrina, she was talking about March 1st. But March 1st has passed. So I'm not sure where we are right now, but I think it should be soon. So here we talk about the elementary school sections. I think before I go in there, I just want to mention one thing I think is very important, is that in our budget for 18-19, we have one contingency position in there that is not allocated here. And therefore, Christine will continue to monitor our registration, and we look at the registration of students on the first day of every month. That's the registrar. Lisa used to do that, but she's no longer
Now
a
she's only
registrar.
the district clerk.
So that is sent out to everyone here, and also the principals. So we monitor, we adjust, we do look at the enrollment, and also here we have, just want to tell you, remind you that we have the two developments projection in there too. So until people start registering, you don't really know how it's going to fall. Okay, so these are our best projections, and you will see the sections that we have.
Can I
And those
also just,
developments
I'm
are
sorry.
Roaring Brook and Grafflin, right? The developments will feed Roaring Brook and
Yes,
Grafflin.
yes.
I also just wanted to add, it's not just class size. The other thing that we continue to wonder about is if we're going to have more students move in who need additional
Services.
ESL services
Right.
specifically.
That's correct.
So-
Yes.
Those are things that we're thinking about.
Okay, so these are the elementary school sections, and then here are the middle school sections, our projections. The presentation, I just want to mention, you don't have to write anything down. The presentation is on the website. You can just look at it. And these are the high school numbers. I'm not going to go over all the numbers. They are here.
Oh, so I wanted to talk a little bit about, so next year, we'll be moving some of our staff around, and in the middle school specifically, we have to support the influx of students going into grade 5. So we're looking at increasing Spanish and family and consumer sciences. And then at the high school, our social worker retired. So in thinking about our students and their social and emotional needs, instead of hiring a .8, we're thinking about increasing that position to a full-time position. And then in terms of reductions, so it looks like through our IEP planning process, we'll be able to reduce 2 teaching assistants. And then we had talked about supporting the athletic program and offering Jason the opportunity to hire some additional coaching, which he'll talk about in his budget presentation. And then, as you know, we increased our security guards here at Greeley, where we've added 3 this year, so we have those in the budget for next year as well.
I just want to mention one thing. They are not employees, so we mentioned that it's contractual. Okay, but there's an impact on the budget. And here's the calculation of tax cap. I'm not going to go over the whole thing. I just want to share one number. Is really the bottom line. And the tax cap is 3.8 million, which represents 3.59% tax levy increase. As you can, if you can recall, earlier we talked about the tax levy increase is actually 2.13%. So we are way under the tax cap. And tax cap for us really is not, for a lot of school districts, I think, last time I looked at it, I think 50 to 60% of the school district, they really go right up to the tax cap. For us, this is really an exercise. We just use this to calculate, make sure we are under, but this is never the target for us, because we truly, like what Christine talked about in the introduction, this is zero base. We really look from the bottom up. We look at every number, we look at every staff position, and then we come up with a budget rather than saying, oh, this is the target, let's go up to that number. That's not how we operate. And we already reported the deadline to report this to the State Controller's Office is on March 1st, so we reported. And when I was at the statewide meeting on Sunday, I heard the average statewide tax levy increase is at 2.5%, because everyone has reported, so they already have the number. So at that time, the tax levy increase statewide is at 2.5%. And again, this is the proposed budget, and I'm going to turn over.
So, I would just say that I think, and you'll find through our next 3 nights of budget presentations, that our administrative team has really thought about the strategic questions, linked those to our funding sources, and made sure that we were presenting a budget to you that was fiscally responsible, but also addressed the unique needs here in Chappaqua of our students, that we are supporting our special ed population by making sure that we are as inclusive. We continue to be an inclusive school district. We're increasing our staff. We're looking at our coaching and our athletic program to make sure that we're addressing our increased enrollment at the high school level to support those students. We're increasing our clinical staff, and we're increasing our security at the high school to make sure that we're providing the safest possible environment for our kids. And we are committed, and we were committed at the outset, to be below the tax cap, which we are. So I just would ask that people begin to email and send their comments to us now, because this is an evolving process. And I would like to also remind the community that tomorrow, John and I go on the road. So,
well, we want to thank the PTA for sponsoring
us, yes.
These 2 events. And I just want to remind everyone, because usually we present one during the daytime, one at night on the same day. But we are not able to secure that because we already changed these dates. Originally was March 12th. So right now, the calendar is very crowded. So we're going to do the evening show first, which is tomorrow night at 7 o'clock at Bell. And then the day show is going to be on March 22nd. It's also a Thursday at 9:30, also at Bell. So we just go back here. So the budget calendar. Actually, I should have changed this because today is the 14th. We're doing the superintendent's recommended budget, but also we have 2 presentations. We have curriculum, we have special ed, and on March 21st, we have 3 presentations. So on that day, we have technology, we have athletics, and also we have facilities. And on March 28th, that's the day we'll present the revenues, the tax levy, tax rates, contingency budget, and whatever else you want to talk about. And then we have a break, and we had to make up some days first. And then we have budget adoption on April 11th. And then we have budget hearing on May 2nd, and then we have a budget vote on May 15th.
So I just want to say, before we get to the other presentations and the more detailed components of the budget, I just want to thank you and the entire administrative team, and also the faculty, for a year-long intense process of budget planning as it goes on every year.
Also, you
I
really
think
need to
it-
thank the community because I definitely have heard from many people
Yeah.
regarding budget.
Yes, I will thank the community, but right now I'm talking about preparation of the budget, and it looks, you presented very clearly, and it looks so simple, but it's really the result of a lot of work starting in the summer by our building principals and also and the entire staff all working together to see what they really need and what's important for students. So I just want to put the budget presentation in that context, that it's just a year-long, district-wide, continuous effort, and I
Thank you.
really do thank you all for so much effort and making it so simple and clear for us.
Also, we're under new leadership, and Christine really makes it very simple for all of us. You know, we round up all the people, talk about what are the needs, and what can we do, and what do we want to do.
And if I didn't mention that, it's because Christine has come into here and done this so seamlessly, so I really,
Thank you.
I really have to recognize
You know what's,
that.
I just,
Thank you.
I want to say, you know what's different about budgeting here and other places? So there are a lot of different things and a lot of innovation that will take place over the course of the budget presentation that happen within context. So while this is the overview, as we begin to present different sections, I think you're going to hear about new nuances that we're going to be offering our kids next year. It's just, I'm used to presenting all of it at once, but I like this model better because you get to hear from different constituents. So I'm excited for people to begin to hear about some of the new opportunities our kids will be afforded through this budget next year. And also, of course, we need to thank John because,
Works tirelessly.
I mean, I don't, you know, when New York State has a problem, they need to figure something out, they call John. I don't know if there's many business administrators throughout the state of New York that are as respected as him. I know.
Exactly, they got a lot of problems.
So we're very lucky to have him here in Chappaqua.
Yes, we are.
Would you like to move into our next budget
John, you have
presentation?
something to say?
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Should we move on to the others? Okay,
So,
let's go then.
Heidi.
So,
yeah.
Are we going to do the capital reserve or not?
Adam, we generally tell guests they can leave after they,
why would we do the
Do you want to do the capital reserve now?
It's on the agenda, in the
We'll
budget.
do it in the, we'll do it after. the
suffer
budget.
through this.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I'm settled. Good evening. It's my pleasure to once again present to you the proposed budget for special education and related services. Before I start, I'd like to recognize Liz Wright, who is the CSC chairperson from preschool through grade 7, and Christy Evers, who's our CSC chairperson from grades 8 through graduation and exiting. We truly are a team, and I wouldn't have been able to prepare this budget without our close collaboration and the information that they provide to me. So they're a big part of what we do here. So being mindful of time, I know I have a lot of information here. I'm going to probably go through some of it relatively quickly, but certainly if you have any questions afterwards, let me know. And that's what I try. No, it's not live. And that's it for the special education.
Thank you.
Any question?
Thank you, Heidi.
I have it on a thumb drive. I'm always prepared. So if you.
So Heidi, while David's fixing this, do you want to talk through the first couple of slides since they're all philosophical?
Sure, absolutely. And I do have it on thumb drive if you want to. Okay, so as we're going through it, I've started the presentation as I've done for the past several years. First with our teaching and learning vision and goals. Don't go away until I see if it works. Yes, okay, thank you, David. With our teaching and learning vision and goals, which is really the framework for everything that we do. So these vision and goals were developed for all students, including students with disabilities. in addition to the statement that we developed in 2011, which speaks very clearly to the board and our faculty, our district's commitment to inclusion. And this statement just recognizes that we believe that whenever possible, students should be included and educated with their non-disabled peers in a general education classroom, which, as was said before, we do very effectively and have very strong outcomes. We also recognize, however, that for a very small percentage of our students, a general education classroom with supplementary aids and supports is not appropriate and wouldn't be the least restrictive, because we wouldn't be able to address the student-specific needs and goals. And for those students, we recommend other more restrictive settings, and I'll go through that a little bit later in the presentation. So I get excited this time of year when I'm presenting the budget to not only be presenting numbers, but also be sharing with you some of the strong work that we've been doing throughout the year, and then focus on what our goals are for next year. So as you may recall, the past 2 years we had a co-teaching fellowship where we had teachers come together in pairs and partnerships, focused on professional development around an area of inquiry. And we had some very strong outcomes from that work last year and the year before. And so in thinking about moving forward to this year, in conversations with Mary Ford, who's really been my partner in this work, we looked at the work that's going on in the district with our new learning spaces and looking at instruction, and we felt strongly that it would be important for us to focus on professional development around accessible instruction. So really looking at how are we providing instruction to our students in which all students can learn, and Adam spoke to that before. And so this year we started our Chappaqua Accessible Instruction Teaching Fellows. We call them our CATE Fellows. And this work is really focusing on and moving forward the principles of universal design for learning, which has a strong emphasis on technology and is very closely aligned with project-based learning. So this is not our education system, but just to kind of really make the point strong, for those of you who cannot see this, you have a person at the desk who's saying, for a fair selection, everybody has to take the same exam, please climb the tree. And you've got a monkey and an elephant and a penguin and a goldfish and a goat and a seal. And so clearly when we're thinking about our students and we're thinking about varying learning styles with our students, not all of our students can demonstrate their understanding through the same task. And so in thinking about our CATE Fellows and accessible instruction, we're really looking at work in which teachers are developing inquiry questions about how they can develop accessible instruction for their students. They're planning for that. They're trying out different types of instruction with their students. They're collecting data. They're analyzing the data themselves with small groups, with larger groups. There's a lot of discussion and feedback being provided. And so throughout this community of our fellows, they're building a collection of resources and sharing with each other. So I'll speak very briefly about Universal Design for Learning, but UDL is an educational framework, and it's based on research in the learning sciences, including cognitive neuroscience, that guides the development of flexible learning environments that can accommodate individual learning differences and give all individuals equal opportunities to learn. And it's going to work to provide a blueprint for creating instructional goals, methods, materials, and assessments that work for everyone. And so it's not just a single one-size-fits-all approach. And so through UDL, we can customize and adjust our instruction and our assessments for the individual needs of all students. So we've spoken a lot in the past about differentiation. And my feeling is that this is taking differentiation really an important step further. And in a simplistic way, I would say that when we speak of differentiation, we may speak of, this is my lesson, this is what I'm going to be teaching, and how do I differentiate for these students and these students? Whereas if you're designing your instruction through universal design, you're saying, these are my students, how am I going to design my instruction so that all of my students can have access to the information. And so the three main focal points are engagement, ensuring that all of the students are engaged. The representation is really how are we representing the information to our students so that every student can access it at the time. And then the action and expression is how students will then express back what they understand and what they've learned. So for example, one student may express back through a written piece, while another student may be better able to do it through technology or video or something like that. And so our fellows are really looking at all of those areas and practicing different ideas. And here's a bit of a graphic, if you will, in portraying this even further. So in the first picture, you're seeing three people, if you will, trying to watch a baseball game, and they're all on the same size carton, and the little one is not able to see. So in the middle one, if you're giving the students kind of the size of carton that they require, now everybody can see. But the goal really is, for the last picture, is that by eliminating the barriers, you don't even need to provide those pieces of differentiation because you're designing it in a way that it's accessible for all. So that's just kind of a way to visualize it. Moving on from that, for this year, we've also continued our focus on the K-12 student support plan work, and we put a finger on the pause button for a moment while we started the strategic coherence planning process, because we wanted to ensure that the work that we've been doing through the K-12 student support plan work is consistent with what is coming forward through the coherence plan. And what we're seeing is that it certainly is, and that this work is very important, especially now in looking at supporting our students' social and emotional development. What we are seeing is that we need to align what we're doing in our schools more carefully, and so that's going to be our work in moving forward. This year, we also provided professional development in the area of executive functioning. Dr. George McCluskey, who is an expert in executive functioning, came, spoke to our parents, as well as to our faculty members through a professional development day for our staff. That was extremely well received, well attended. Teachers are still speaking about that and what they've learned to me just in their daily work. We're continuing to focus on students' transition from high school, and particularly those students who may not be transitioning from high school into a 2-year or 4-year college, but transitioning into a work environment or an environment in which they might need some additional support. And so this year we've contracted with somebody who's a transition specialist who's working with us to ensure that students who have more complicated or more varied needs within their transition planning, that we are identifying for the students and for their families all of the different resources that are available for young adults and families through the community and statewide. The specialist's name is Kerry McKenna. He has a long-standing career as a transition specialist, and so he's bringing that level of expertise to us. Christy has been critical in really coordinating all of that with our faculty members so that we have been not only supporting our students, but more importantly, increasing our capacity to work in those areas so that at some point we will no longer need a consultant or a contract provider to assist us with that. And he is right on board with that, that's his plan as well, is to just ensure that our knowledge base continues to grow. We've continued our work with looking at students' behaviors and their functions of behaviors and developing appropriate behavior plans to address them. In the areas of reading, we've provided additional training for our teachers, some of our teachers and specialists in reading instruction that is explicit for students who have particular reading disabilities. We conduct teaching assistant training every year, and we've continued to do that with our teaching assistants, really helping them better understand disabilities, students with disabilities, and how to provide supports for our students in a way that does not enable the students or lead the students to be dependent on their support, but really to facilitate greater independence. We saw a need and a desire for increased parent participation and improved communication. So this year, we started a special education advisory committee on which we have 10 parents who come to the committee, and we meet and we discuss different topics. We've narrowed our focus down for this year to overall communication, better communication, both in parents communicating to us what they're hearing out in the field, as well as us communicating to parents what we're doing and the work that we're doing and how we're supporting students. And then we dove deeper at our meeting just on Monday, right, on looking at social inclusion. Technology falls in beautifully with all of the work that we're doing in our new learning spaces with accessible instruction. And so we're very fortunate to have one of our special education teachers serving as a staff developer in the area of technology. And she is working district-wide with all of our students and teachers, focused on technology support for all of our students and teachers. She's not working with every single student, but also with a particular focus, and part of her time is on using assistive technology for some of our students with disabilities. Last year, we received a wonderful grant from the Foundation for Co-Writer and Snap and Read, which are two programs that are used with technology for reading and for writing. And that is available for all of our students district-wide. So the staff developer, Ellen Moskowitz, has been working with our teachers and actually had scheduled a parent evening for last night. That got snowed out, so that will be rescheduled. We continue our work in supporting our students in our inclusive settings, looking at ourselves, continuing with our own self-assessment, and focusing as well around technology and with curriculum and with Josh Block around project-based learning and preparing ourselves for moving forward in our new spaces. There will be a parent evening about that too on March 26th. So all of those good things will continue, and in moving forward to next year, which will be guided by our strategic coherence plan, we'll continue the CATE Fellows. We'll continue the work with around social emotional development of our students, and the K-12 student support plan. The state has indicated that all districts need to develop a guidance plan, and again, greater alignment. So that's what we've really focused and called it our student support plan and moving forward. Ruler is a social emotional program from Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence that we've started in year one, rolling out into the high school. So that will continue to year two in the high school, and we'll be looking to see if that would be appropriate to also implement at the other levels. We're going to continue focusing on the reading support for struggling readers and train additional teachers. And we're going to continue with our use of technology. Ellen Moskowitz, the staff developer, and I are actually participating in a multi-day training session on learning how to build capacity of our own staff members. And I'm looking forward to having Adam here too to focus on that and to build a district team around assistive technology for some of our students with disabilities that may need specific types of technology. Again, social inclusion, I just mentioned, was an area that was recognized by our advisory committee as looking at an area in need of focus. We do a really good job of including our students academically, and our outcomes are strong as with regard to graduation rates, with regard to our standardized testing. But there seems to be a need to look deeper into if our students are included kind of outside of academics within the school. And so that's an area that we want to take a deeper dive into. We're going to continue our work on transition for our students, and for some of our students who have been participating in BOCES, Basic Occupational Education classes, which are the BOCES classes that are designed for students with disabilities that need kind of more scaffolded instruction. We feel that some of those students are now ready to go out into our community and start some work, some supported work in our community. So we're going to be looking at providing some job coaching for them in the community. An increased focus on our co-teaching in the classroom, providing some consultants to come in and do some classroom coaching of our co-teaching teams, and to continue on the work of our behavioral supports for our students. A number of years ago, I had applied for a grant through the Center for Autism and Related Disabilities to work with a school to train through a multi-day intense training on really looking and identifying behaviors of our students and how to develop appropriate behavior plans for them. The particular focus was for students with autism, but it really could be generalized for other students. Shelley Langton, as a teacher here in the audience, has really taken it and moved it forward, and there's a strong behavior intervention team over in Seven Bridges. So I'm going to be applying to CARD for some of our other schools, and hopefully it's a statewide application system and a grant, but I'm hoping that because they know how strong their work has continued in our district, I'm hoping that they'll approve some more of our applications so we can have more teachers and teams trained. And then kind of the big focus for us in special education for next year is going to be our Tri-States visit. The Tri-State Consortium is coming back in December, and the focus will be on special education. So while we haven't yet developed our exact essential questions, we do want them to help us look at how we're providing supports and services for our students who receive special education services. So this next slide speaks to who we are. This is data that is from Beds Day, which is the one day in October where everybody reports the same information so that we can compare district to district. And on Beds Day this October, we had a total of 388 students who were classified as students with educational disabilities who have individualized education programs. And we had 46 students who are preschoolers with disabilities. And I've broken it out for you by disability category. Our classification rate for the 16-17 school year was 9.8, which is up a little bit, but I would say not statistically significant from the year before, in that it changes and it moves. It's depending on the cohort of students that are coming in from preschool, the number of students that have graduated, the number of students that we've declassified throughout the year. So it's really that variable and changes from year to year and sometimes month to month. But in general, 9.8 is a strong classification rate in which it is around what the goal is for New York State. When New York State compiles all of the data from similar districts in the state, that averaged to 12.4, and statewide, the classification averages 14.9%. And we are at the low end, but not the lowest, kind of some of the other Westchester communities that John was speaking about before. But certainly, I think a very appropriate classification rate for our district.
So it depends on the denominator then, also, the whole population.
Sure, yes.
How can there be a goal? I mean, how can you help? How can you help the needs of children in a district? So, I mean, it's not you. I understand the state has a goal. Is that what you're saying?
I think that, if you look at the general population, right?
No, I understand the paradigm.
But,
yeah.
but also, it's just to ensure that we're not over-classifying students to provide them services, right? So really looking at if students truly meet the criteria through Part 200 of the Commissioner's Regulations for classification as a student with an educational disability.
The state will monitor our subgroups, then they monitor our overall average, and then if we exceed it, we'll be put on a correction plan. So we're well under the state average. That's the way that they monitor classification rates, to ensure we're not being inappropriate.
And so the placements, as I spoke to before in the slide when I was showing our commitment to inclusion, the majority of our students, certainly, large majority, are in in-district programs. But if we feel that we cannot meet the specific needs of a student, we will look to place the student in another public school, a BOCES or approved private school placement. So on Beds Day, this is for the past 3 years. Our students who were in district, 355, we had 32 students who were in out-of-district placements, and 1 student whose disability is such that that student cannot be educated in a school environment.
Most of our districts that are, students that are out of district are secondary students, not our elementary.
Right. And I'll get to that in a couple of slides, right? So again, in speaking about our inclusive programming, this is just showing you statewide data that speaks to educating our students 80% or more inside the classroom. And this 86.1% is all of our students, not just the in-district students. So including our students who are in residential programs, who are in approved private school programs, who are in BOCES programs, all of those put together, 86.1% of all of our students are in general education classrooms for 80% more of the time. And other than Briarcliff, our numbers are significantly higher than
Certainly
other
an
districts.
outlier. We certainly are, and I think that's a credit to the philosophy that this district has towards inclusion, specifically as it's a civil rights issue, and we really feel it benefits all of our students in our district. And it's a credit to Heidi's team to be able to structure a program that supports our kids in the most meaningful way, both academically and socially. So I do want to just take a pause and recognize our special ed department for being able to support our kids so effectively. Because it certainly stands out compared to other districts across the state.
Yes, and you will see that some of our neighboring districts are now adopting more of a philosophy of inclusion and sending their staffs to inclusion conferences and bringing people in and really trying to move inclusion forward. So, and I cannot take credit for even starting inclusion in this district, and this is my 8th year. This is well before I was here, and quite frankly, the reason why I came here, because it was so exciting. But those numbers mean nothing if you don't have strong outcomes. But when you look at our outcomes and you look at our performance on the state assessments, and you look at our graduation performance, that's when you see that it's really working, because we're still, we're higher than our other districts in our area and other similar districts in those outcomes as well. So of our 32, here is where our students are for this year and the past 2 years. Before that, as Christine was saying before, of the 32, 6% are elementary, 28% are middle school, and 66% are high school. And the primary classification for the students who are out of district is autism. And the next classification would be multiple disabilities and then emotionally disturbed. So it's really our students who would not be able to make meaningful progress in a large classroom, large school environment, and really need some very specific type of instruction in order for them
So is that
to make.
why the number goes higher in high school? Because you have a larger class, you have less
That's,
individual?
that is some of the reason. I think that we can very easily include kids in elementary school. In middle school, it starts to get harder. In high school, when there are the requirements for regions, that's when we're really working very, very hard to ensure that students are meaningfully included and are able to make progress toward their own goals in that classroom environment. It gets more difficult in the high school.
I think too, Warren, you're correct in your assessment, and the transitions as kids move through the secondary program become more difficult, particularly from our students that have autism.
You know, Dan Habib, the filmmaker, was here a couple of months ago, and he's a filmmaker who's made several films on disabilities. One of them, his first really was including Samuel, and that was really about his son, who has cerebral palsy, who's now graduating from high school. And Samuel was a little cute little one in the film, but we were talking about a number of things. One, really speaking to UDL and the representation and the expression that Samuel throughout high school has really done most of his work through technology and videos, and showing his understanding through making films like his dad. But we were talking about it, they don't live in New York, they live in New Hampshire, and so there aren't Regents examinations in New Hampshire. So it's easier for Samuel to have been fully included and to be able to really differentiate the different type of instructions and assessments for him, because he didn't have to take the Regents at the end of the day. So there was just a bit more flexibility that we don't have in New York State because of the Regents exams. So the main components of the special education budget: contractual services, and those are services that either we provide for specific students who have specific needs that can't be covered through our own faculty members, for example, a teacher of the deaf or a teacher of the blind, that we don't have enough students or a cohort of students to hire somebody for that, so we will contract for those services. Some other very specific services, like for our audiologist, as well as some of the services like I described before for our transition specialist. Salaries, John spoke or will be speaking of that in one of the budget presentations. Tuition for our students in out-of-district placements, transportation, and then extended school year programs. So I know this is really going to be hard for the audience to see, but basically, it's staying fairly consistent. There are some adjustments that are made from year to year. And the thing is that when I'm projecting in September and October for the following September for a population that is very fluid and can change, it really is our best estimate. I think we've been fairly successful through the years in really projecting appropriately for our students, but a family may move in with 3 students who need a certain level of care that requires additional funding that may change it. But based on the information that we have at the time that we developed the budget, it's fairly consistent with our projections for the number of students who will be out of district. The amount is raised a bit, and that's just because I estimated in there a slight increase in the cost of tuition. And then the next page speaks to the transportation and the interfund transfers. This is the summer school program.
Heidi, can I ask, did you take state aid into account?
I did.
Reimbursement?
Here you go.
Oh, there you go. Okay, I'll ask my question.
Do you want to go back one? I
later.
just want to add one thing. Just want to talk about for the interfund transfer. This is for the summer program, and right now we don't know whether or not the number is going to be precisely that. The reason is because right now the school district responsibility is 20% and the state is 80%. But right now in the governor's proposal, he really wants to restructure this part of the funding based on wealth factor. So there's a possibility, I think, Vicki, you have been
Why
informing
restructure it?
us.
They don't pay it anyway.
Right. So,
I really have minimal
so there's
Nothing from nothing still
in
equals
the
nothing.
governor's
political
budget,
impact.
It's like men club.
he's
It's a
reducing
20%
from
supposed to
80%
get,
to 25%. What that translates to is an increase of $435,000
That's
for
what we
us.
calculated, but that's in the executive budget.
It's
and-
in the executive, but the one house budget from the assembly that they rejected
rejected
this.
it.
Right, they rejected that.
But I think
so
is right now it's going to be negotiated, so
I think they're going to use it as a bargaining chip.
that's right.
But it made a
They're gonna use
it made a
kids are gonna use special ed
$400,000
services over the summer
difference
as a
for
bargaining
us.
chip.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the numbers, John, you said we get 80% back, but we don't. I mean, we get somewhere significantly less than that,
Yes.
What
right?
percentage?
58,
We write some off, yes.
about 58% is what we end up getting.
I want to do that with our business.
Heidi, just quick question. There was something, the abbreviation said car. Can you explain what that was? Sorry, it was on a previous slide.
Yeah, that, so part of our, some of the preschools and the private schools are able to get a portion of funding from us. It's flow-through funds.
Okay.
So some of the funds that we get from the government flow through us.
And go to the placement.
To them based on the number of students they have and what their costs are. So that's calculated in there because the amount is calculated in our revenue, but then some of that flows through them. So I have to calculate that into the budget.
Like as an expense that's going out, you're
Right.
saying? Okay.
Right. It's actually flowing through us and back out again, but because we're counting it coming in, we have to.
We have to show it going out. Okay.
Thank you for that question. So here are some of the funding sources that we have. The IDA Part 2 grants, Part B grants, some of our consultant costs are in there, as well as portions of salaries for administrative costs for our preschool, as well as some of our teachers and teaching assistants. There are the state aid numbers. And then for some of our students who are Medicaid eligible, we do recoup some of those costs for Medicaid through Medicaid reimbursement. And then just to end, kind of where we began, is that it's our responsibility to educate all of our students, and that doesn't mean the same thing for all of our students. So our job is to ensure that we develop a budget that will support our educating our students so that they can be successful in school and in life after school.
So I just want to acknowledge budgeting for special ed is so hard because not only are you working with our students that are in district, but there are so many different contracts and service providers and estimating tuition rates and trying to put together the budget for special education if someone has done it in the past. I find it always extremely difficult. So I wanted to thank Heidi and John for their work together to present this to you tonight, particularly since we're dealing with multiple agencies to try to pull together what we think our cost will be for next year. So
Right.
I want to take a second to thank you.
Thank you, Heidi.
I have a question. Quick question. I think I asked last year and the year before, so we'll sort of follow up. What have you seen with the, I guess, the change in ruling that the superintendent can allow some adjustments to graduation and regents? I don't know, I'm not sure I asked the question correctly.
Yeah,
Where-
so the superintendent's determination, so there have been a number of changes in options for students with disabilities to be able to graduate with a high school diploma, which has really moved, we believe, in a positive direction. And the most recent change has even adjusted a student's score on the English and the math regions in such a way that as long as we can show that the student has met course requirements, in other words, understood the content in the classes, but for whatever reason, disability related, they weren't able to demonstrate that understanding on that standardized test. Okay, going back to the picture of the goat trying to climb the tree. If we provide that documentation to the superintendent does have the ability to grant a high school diploma. It is not meant for students who do not understand the content, cannot pass the course in any way, that we're just giving out high school diplomas, but it's really for students who try as they might, cannot get a passing or a 55 on that English or math. And I believe that we will be able to utilize that option or recommend to the superintendent that she consider that option this year for a small number, but it's going to be a life changer for the students that we can.
We take shots at, you heard us before, at the financials that the state gives to us or doesn't give to us. But I think in this case, they've done something really, really good for our students.
It's with a lot of advocacy from a lot of people, including the organization that I sit on,
Absolutely,
really
but
saying,
I mean, you and I have been talking about this, I think, for 3 years now.
yes,
So I'm glad it's finally coming
Yes.
to the point where we can.
yes.
Well, they took it away, now they're slowly giving it back.
Well, yeah, I mean, they took away that safety net with the RCTs and all of that, but I think that in some ways, I do have to give them credit for raising the expectations for our students, right? And I always find that the majority of our students, when you raise the bar,
Jump higher.
they jump higher, right? But then there were those few students who try as they might couldn't jump through that hoop, and so this gives them an opportunity to also graduate with a high school diploma, which is fantastic.
I do have a couple of questions. One is you talked about reading and training teachers, and I know we've been speaking about this for a couple of years, and I just wanted to, for the benefit of the community, get a sense of where we were, where we are, and where we're going.
We've done more training, and Mary might be speaking to this in
I didn't
hers
want to
in
see
a
a lot
couple
of
of slides.
overlap. Yes.
Yeah, there is. We've worked so closely together. In the Wilson reading program, so really looking at kind of more of the phonics component of reading. And so we are looking, Christine and I actually spoke about it this morning, we're looking to train more of our teachers for next year, more of our reading teachers, as well as our primary special education teachers, and perhaps some of our middle special education teachers as well.
So I plan on the the final budget presentation to talk about what our plan will be for next year.
Okay, great. And then two others. One, I remember a couple of years ago, we saw a big jump in the classification rates for emotional disability, and we were asking if there was any kind of local or global trend that could explain it. And that's in the past, but speech and language impairment jumped considerably. And I'm just wondering if there is something that explains that, or if it's just, it is what it is.
Do either of you feel there's anything to explain the speech and language impairment? I mean, sometimes it just kind of is
Right.
what it is. I don't know if either of you have felt that there's been anything to contribute to that.
I don't have the hard data available, but certainly preschool transition always plays a part in classification rates, and also the number of students that have moved into the district. So there were a number of younger students that did move in this year. I can't say exactly that could have been it, but oftentimes that does play a big role.
It's
Yeah.
not. And then finally, you talked about social inclusion, and maybe tonight isn't the right opportunity to talk about it because we've got so much going on, but I'm curious as to what that looks like and how it works both in a school and how we can encourage it more in the community as well.
Right.
So maybe this is for a discussion for another time.
Yeah, I'll say just really briefly that I think the goal is really for a more organic inclusion of our students with disabilities in activities in and outside of school, right? So natural friendships, being invited or included to dances or whatever, not as because it's somebody from a club is butting up and asking somebody, but really because they genuinely
Want their peers.
inviting their friends and going. So it's complex, right? Because it's very complex, and there are a lot of areas attached to that actually the advisory committee is going to be looking at and doing some work in that area.
But I would say it continues to be a theme in every discussion with our special ed parents. A concern that while in our district we provide an inclusive environment for our kids, when they leave our school day, they're not feeling the same way, many of them. So how can we do better? How can we do a better job with our students and making sure they feel a part of the entire community?
Right.
Okay, thank you, Heidi.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Heidi.
And now it's Mary's turn. Thank you, Christy and Liz, too, for your help. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
This started. Before I get started, I would like to extend my own personal welcome to Adam. Adam and I know each other from Curriculum Council and a few other places, and I will say I know that curriculum is going to be in wonderful hands with Adam, and I'm so excited that you're joining the Chappaqua team. So take copious notes. I see you have been already. Okay, just find my presentation. Okay, looks like we're working. So I think that it's appropriate, and good evening, I'm sorry.
Hi.
I think it's appropriate that this presentation is situated between Heidi's presentation on special education and next time Josh's presentation on technology, because there is a great deal of overlap. And we work closely as a team, the staff developers, Heidi, Josh, and I, and our professional development team, because it's critical that all of these efforts are coordinated. So I think you'll see and hear some overlap as I discuss some of the major components of the curriculum budget, and hopefully I can clarify some pieces for you, but they'll certainly come up again in Josh's presentation, and some of them were in Heidi's as well. So again, not to belabor the point, but the strategic question really does guide our work. So thinking about applying problem-solving skills, students actively participating in their learning as they acquire content knowledge, that's a very big focus. And then looking at the teaching and learning vision and goals. One of the things that I would love to change in this document, and I know we're going through a coherent strategic planning process, so we may change some of our documents. The one recommendation I'd make is that this doesn't say just students. It's the students and the adults. Because when we think about our learning environment, it's for adults and students who are under the age of 18 as well. And all of these things are part of professional development as well as part of the classroom environment. So if we want an active learning environment for our students, we have to have an active learning environment for our faculty as well. So that means for all of us. And it may be very different. I know it's very different from the way I experienced school as a young student. So I think it's really important that as we design professional learning opportunities for the adults, that we keep these things in mind, the collaboration, the feedback, the way we use language, the growth mindset. It's all a really important part of everything that we do. And just the big picture, these three big elements of educational excellence, the high quality curriculum and instruction, that's an ongoing endeavor. Strong, effective leadership. Our leaders need to learn as well. So it's really being part of a learning organization, and that's something we have to maintain a focus on. And this ongoing and comprehensive professional development. So with everything we do, the adults are learning as much as the students are. And the next few slides are just a review of some notable projects in curriculum this school year, not an exhaustive list. But certainly things you've heard lots about during the presentations that have taken place over the last few months. So project-based learning or problem-based learning, maker spaces, math implementation in elementary. We're in year 3 of math and focus implementation. We're still doing classroom coaching work. We still have consultants coming in. This is ongoing. How can we make it even better? I think teachers are at a place now where they feel even more comfortable with that curriculum. So it's moving from a place of really kind of following the math in focus guide to really making it their own and being a lot more comfortable with it. As Heidi mentioned, in literacy, we have some expanded interventions through Wilson. There's another one, Just Words. Just Words is available at the elementary and the upper grades as well as the middle schools. And Just Words is a program that was created by Barbara Wilson, who's the author of Wilson Reading System. So it is a condensed version, really, of Wilson and meant for small groups. And the hope is that students who experience that wouldn't need a one-to-one or very small group Wilson, more intensive intervention later on. We've also looked at our classroom words study to make that more consistent. So when you think about the general education part of this, we think about small tweaks that we made. For example, using the same keywords for the sounds of the letters in the alphabet in every classroom, K and 1, so that when students move from classroom to classroom, they're not seeing different things, they're not confused. We were noticing that on a walkthrough last year, and they were all great resources, but teachers might have something from the teacher's store and something that they got from a training 5 years ago, and we weren't really consistent. So just making small changes like that have been really helpful, and thinking more about how we make that more consistent and even stronger for our students. In technology, we have an iPad initiative in kindergarten and first grade. I recently saw a word study lesson using the iPad, so these things are very much connected. So students are using the technology, teachers are getting used to the technology, and thinking about the different ways it can support the curriculum. Middle school, very similar. The math, we're in year 2 of Big Ideas, and that's going well also in grades 6 through 8. In literacy, there's a social studies literacy course in 5th and 6th grade in which social studies is taught by the reading specialist, and that's really to infuse more reading and writing experiences for those students, and using social studies kind of as the venue for doing that. And then in technology, the use of Canvas in our middle school. So 7th and 8th grade, more and more students are using Canvas, more and more teachers are using Canvas. We're also using Canvas in professional development. So we've created lots of hybrid and online courses, so teachers at all levels have access to Canvas, and they can learn online. They're learning Canvas while they're learning the content and participating in discussions with their peers. At the high school, there's lots of planning going on for the new L building that's coming online very soon, and also an in-service learning team around that. So we have different departments that are a part of that learning team. I've been there for several of their meetings, in particular the English department, the social studies department, and the world language department are all part of it. Sometimes they're working together, sometimes they're working separately. We still have our innovation fellows. That's another fellowship that's just here at the high school. It started with the iLab, where teachers are creating units of study that are innovative and make use of the space. So obviously with our new spaces, that's really important and ongoing work. We have computer engineering design courses here at Greeley, more opportunities for advanced course enrollment. We're moving towards more open enrollment, as you know. So there are expanded opportunities, and I think we're thinking carefully about how we can expand them even more. Lots of new social studies resources coming online. There are some new live binders through the DBQ project that we just purchased for our social studies department here at Greeley. The English department is just starting a department-wide book study. There's a new book out by Kate Roberts. She was the person who wrote a book on close reading a few years ago. It was very popular. She actually came to the district. She's written a new book called A Novel Approach, and it really gets to the tension between the classic whole class novel and all the things that are wonderful about that, and meshing that with student choice and having students read more and more of they're choosing. So that's a really important initiative, but I think it honors both, and the English department is just getting started on that, but ready to have some really good conversation about how that might impact their work. District-wide, we're doing lots of K-12 work, and I was saying to Adam before, I think that's really important to see that through line, and not just level by level, but thinking about what it looks like K-12 and what those progressions are. So there's a STEAM learning team, there's a problem-based learning in-service course. Diane Cunningham is facilitating that for us, and using Canvas. In literacy, we've had quite a few K-12 courses, reading and writing strategies, the foundational early reading skills, including the phonics skills, a new one on Read Aloud that's been offered recently. In technology, having the co-writer in Snap and Read has been a game changer, and using Canvas for professional development. I think the beauty of having these K-12 courses is seeing teachers make connections, like having a high school science teacher interact with a kindergarten teacher and realizing that they have so much in common and where they see those common threads for their students. So those are always very well received. But moving forward, just kind of zooming out a little bit, the focus areas for next year, the use of our new innovative spaces and the technology to enhance teaching and learning. So this is ongoing work. We've been working on much of this for a very long time, but certainly amping up our efforts in the recent months, and will be going forward as well. So this effective use of the new STEAM labs and the global learning centers, and exploring those interdisciplinary units, which STEAM units are, and problem and project-based learning are as well. But also not to forget about the other subject areas, so continuing to strengthen, align, and enhance literacy instruction. So we've been having lots of conversations, especially at our middle schools, about aligning that even more, articulating our curriculum and strengthening it, and coming to a place of greater coherence. Also, instruction in all subject areas. So it's we don't want to forget about everything else that we've been doing, so we have some really exciting new things that are happening, but there's ongoing work in every subject area that certainly needs attention as well. And just some of the structures that we use for professional learning. We have our faculty meetings, and more our faculty meetings are opportunities for professional learning rather than just administrivia. At the elementary level, we have joint faculty meetings. Recently, we had one on the New York State Science Learning Standards based on the NGSS. So getting teachers better acquainted with those standards, that was one example of a meeting. Different staff development days, full days, half days. We have our learning symposium that we have in October, and that's always well received, where teachers share their work. In-service courses and learning teams are ongoing, but ongoing support for inquiry. So I think one of the hallmarks of our district certainly is professional learning, but in particular that every teacher has an inquiry question. And I think that really guides the work in a very different way, going back to the beginning when we said that for adults, it's really important to have an active learning environment, and inquiry approach is that active learning environment. So there's choice, there's interest considered. There are different ways of going through the design process to think about your learning and starting over. So I think that our administrators, our staff developers, and teachers support one another in that process. That's really important. We have a strong mentor program, classroom coaching, outside experts. I mean, the list goes on, and I think this is really unusual that we have so many structures that support professional learning within our district. And just to add on to that list a little more, we have some K-12 committees. We have literacy and technology that are both K-12, and very recently we started a social studies leadership team. Again, looking at the standards, thinking about the K-12 continuum, and having teachers who are really interested and passionate about that work. And then we have our fellowships. So right now, and Heidi went into some depth about our accessible instruction teaching fellows, formerly known as the collaboration teaching fellows. We changed the name because the first iteration of that we asked the teachers who were in collaborative partnerships to join together. And then we realized that that wasn't sustainable because oftentimes the assignments change. So we started focusing more on UDL, as Heidi described, and then changed the name to Accessible Instruction Teaching Fellows. But in all of these fellowships, inquiry is really the focus. So this is a deeper form of inquiry than all teachers have as part of the APPR process. TARP is our first action research project, now in year 10. So yeah, our 5th cohort is going to be finishing up very soon, and that's been very, very successful.
How many teachers have gone through that at this point?
You know, I'm not sure total, but I would say it's in the ballpark of 60. Yeah. We have a smaller cohort this time around, but it's every time teachers say that that is one of the most impactful professional learning experiences that they've had. And just thinking about leadership, our administrators participate in the network visits. Monthly, at least half our leadership team does that work. So we're visiting schools and learning about what that particular school is working on. Through admin council, we've done book studies, we've had authors visit. This year we're participating in strategic coherence planning. That's part of our learning as well. We have a summer leadership retreat. We also have those mini retreats mid-year and in April as well. And then some teacher leadership initiatives. So we still have some teachers who are part of the FSLA program. Some of our staff developers participated in a BOCES teacher leadership conference this year. So we have different opportunities for teacher leaders to emerge, some formal and some informal. So big picture of the budget. On this first slide, you'll see that there are some deductions and some additions, but the total is actually the same. So one of the things that's being removed, it's in the research line, that's $7,500 that's being reduced, is the use of Atlas. So for curriculum mapping. It's not that we're abandoning curriculum mapping. We're going to make use of our new website, which I think is well equipped and also ADA compliant, so it can certainly house all of our curriculum maps. And I think that's a way to save some funds and also think about when and how often we update them. Sometimes we found Atlas to be a little clunky. It was certainly very helpful for many, many things, but we're not updating them as often as a $7,500 expenditure might require. Another place, we just moved some money contractual to the travel and conferences line. It's not that we're adding to more travel or conferences, but we were actually using that money when teachers go to, for example, calendar days in New York City at Teachers College. A lot of those travel funds, they get some reimbursement for mileage and tolls. They were coming out of there, so this was just a shifting to reflect the actual expenditures and where they were coming from, so we don't have to move things around. And on this last slide, there is only one addition, and that is in the textbook line. I know a few years ago, Eric took some money out when we had purchased lots of our math textbooks and we thought we were done. Christine and I have been having some conversations over the course of this year and recognizing that we really need to invest annually in our classroom libraries. So the money that's allotted there, that $50,000, would roughly give $500 to every English classroom, middle and high, as well as elementary. You could think about different ways to structure those funds, perhaps focusing more on one level one year and others on another year. But I think having the money in the budget is an important piece. I think the other thing to keep in mind is that those may not always be physical books on the shelf that you may see. So some more virtual books, especially as we move towards more one-to-one, might be part of what you see in a classroom collection. So it may not all be the library on the shelf. I was at a conference at Teachers College recently, and they were sharing some recent research on how comprehension is actually very different with digital text than it is with print text. And some people, most people, actually have more difficulty with digital text, which made me feel a little bit better because I realized I like to go back to a certain page and I can almost feel it. And they said that there really is research to back that up. but it's also confirming that there are ways to teach people to navigate digital text more successfully so that it doesn't have a negative impact on comprehension. So I think we have to keep all of that in mind as we think about our collections and what they look like in every classroom. But certainly thinking about student choice, keeping current titles so they're excited and they want to read more and more, those are really important pieces, and just staying current. I think that's a really important part of a classroom collection. So that's the only place where there's really an addition to the budget for curriculum.
Mary, I'm curious about that research that you just mentioned about comprehension.
Yes.
Digital versus paper text. I mean,
Yeah.
was that, did they find a causation? I mean, is there a correlation? I mean, is it just a correlation or a causation of is it the navigation that
I'm
really
not sure.
causes-
What they described was watching students who were reading digital text, and they actually had cameras on their eyes, and they could watch the way their eyes moved across a text. And there was this kind of going across and up and down, and this kind of flitting around on a digital text that wasn't the case when they were reading an actual physical text.
So it's not just a matter of being able to go back and forth
No.
in a book. It's how the person processes the information on a device.
Yeah, there are some differences, and I think it is, fairly new and emerging research. So you always look at those things with caution.
Yeah,
But I'd
yeah.
also say that as we move forward, at least they were recommending, don't jump in fully to the digital pool and abandon the actual
Absolutely
physical
not.
books.
It's actually interesting that the Board of Ed have all asked for hard copies, when we used to just
Right.
do electronic.
See,
I
your
thought
reading
it was-
comprehension has to be very strong.
I thought
yeah.
it was generational because, I did want the hard copy because
Yeah.
I can take notes and remember what it is I want to ask.
Yeah.
So,
The
Yeah,
note-taking,
yeah.
that's really important. It's interesting, I'm taking some classes now, and I purchased all of the books on my iPad, and I thought, oh, wonderful, I have them all in one place, I'm not carting things around. But I went back to keeping a physical notebook to take notes as I read, because I felt I needed that to kind of help me to focus and really understand deeply what I was reading. So it's very interesting and emerging, but I think, words of wisdom and caution as you move forward in thinking about what a collection looks like and what the different learning styles may be, and also what the strategies might be that we have to teach our students in
Yeah, I
terms
was
of
going to
reading.
say, because as we try to move towards, one-to-one and with the devices, it may be like the kids at the younger levels have to be taught to, which, I'm doing, you're looking at it here, you're bringing a notebook, you have to learn strategies so that you have the same retention level.
Yes.
If that is an issue.
And you'll hear next week in Josh's presentation some of our ideas about one-to-one, but how we'll balance that out with having real-time
Right,
paper copies in
Right.
front of you, too.
Right.
So, again, I think we can all agree that that's very important.
right. Okay. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Bring back the ditto machine.
No, not
all the
dittos.
purple ink.
No.
does anyone have any questions for Mary?
So I just wanted to thank Mary. She's serving in a dual role. She's our interim assistant superintendent, but she's also the director of literacy, and she's been able to balance that really nicely for us in our district. So I wanted to take a moment to thank her for all of her work this year.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you, Mary.
Okay. All right. And that concludes our budget presentations
For
for
tonight.
today. So I just wanted to take a moment. I'm not recommending we change the calendar tonight. I'd like to do that next week because we may be facing another snow event. But you have the you have the calendar in front of you. So I just wanted to explain a couple of points. So as you already know from my announcement, we've had to take back 2 of our spring break days, which is the 5th and 6th of April, in accordance with the calendar that was approved last year. Since our elementary school students missed a day, they will be in session now on May 18th, which was approved superintendent's conference day already. And when you're developing the calendar, you need to have 180 instructional days, and superintendent conference days count within those 180 days, as do our early release days. So I've answered a lot of feedback from parents saying, well, to offset the loss of the snow day, can you increase the early release day to a full day? That doesn't address the regulation. So we really need to take those 2 days back in April in order to be able to meet the regulatory requirement. Some of the superintendents have petitioned the commissioner to allow us to go into June past the Regents Rating Day, but under the regulations, typically you're only permitted to do that if you've exhausted your spring break days. So I can't foresee her making an exception because we do have the days allocated in this way, so we can take them back if we exceed our snow day allowance. So-
Christine, I'm sorry, can I just ask for a quick clarification on May
Sure.
18th? That was already a superintendent's conference day.
Right, so what I've done is I've allowed the elementary kids to come in that day.
Right, that's the one for the one day, the extra day of the elementary.
And then
Okay,
the
just wanna make
teachers
sure.
are coming in without any students, only the elementary teachers now on April 3rd for a superintendent's conference day. April 4th for a superintendent's conference day. Sorry about that. So the teachers will be on the 4th, and the students will be in on the 5th and the 6th, provided we do not have any more snow days this year.
And the 18th stays the way it is.
It does, with the exception of the elementary students will now be in attendance because the elementary teachers' superintendent's conference day will be moved now to the 4th. So it was a way to prevent the elementary students from coming in 3 days over break, and the secondary students coming in twice.
Does the state have any sort of requirement of what percentage of students have to be in school to make it an official day?
No. I mean, you could say they do, but in theory, if parents choose to not send their students in those days, but we have presented a calendar in which we're meeting the 180 days, I can't see them issuing a penalty against us.
And what would be the penalty?
They always threaten to restrict your or impact your state aid.
We don't pay that in.
So, but we
Withhold our summer.
I know.
Special ed fee.
But so listen, I understand parents have made plans for their kids, and they, if you are in a situation where you feel like you can't modify your plans, then just reach out to your building principal, and we'll do our best to help support everybody. It's the nature of the situation. Next year, the way the calendar stands, we'll have 2 days surrounding the Memorial Day break, so hopefully won't be in this situation again if we wound up having a difficult winter. The only other thing I need to mention that I'll be suggesting next week is that we lost an early release day on February 2nd because we had a snow delay, so all the students came to school. So the staff and faculty really need me to make that day up because we have professional development planned that afternoon. So I will be recommending to you that makeup day be April 20th. So if we approve that next Wednesday and the calendar adjustments, I'd like to push that out to the community.
Okay,
Okay?
all right.
Just a couple things on this, like, can we indicate, though, what May 18th is, like, when it gets pushed out?
Yeah.
So that it's delineated, and there's some typos on the bottom of this that we'll have to clean up. Please, the makeup days will be calculated in this order, and then it's all under the please note on the bottom.
I think it's because
Maybe it's if it's my copy.
A punch hole there.
No, it's not.
So
All right, but
what
that's
we'll do
okay.
is we'll revise the entire
Just we'll
calendar
fix
and
it.
send it
Yeah,
out.
That's great.
If you look online, I think we can read it.
Yeah.
But hopefully,
Online, I think it was
there'll be
a
no
long
more
time.
revisions after this.
Awesome.
I can only hope.
Okay, thank you,
Okay,
Christine. It's a
no
very
problem.
complicated process, but it's the best we can do. So thank
Year
you.
long, We've had those typos for years.
So we're still in superintendent's report?
we're ready to
Oh,
move
do you
into
want to,
the-
you want to skip to security updates when we?
Right, so we'll do it by
Consider the
resolution.
item.
Yep.
Okay. Now we have the establishment of capital reserve.
Right, so John, did you want to talk a little bit about?
I think we have, facilities
Have a-
committee members will be talking about
We
that.
have a resolution.
Yeah.
Warren?
Yeah,
Would you
thank
wanna
you.
speak about this?
I mean,
Yes.
at the facilities committee, we discussed doing a capital reserve. We have certain reserves and fund balances for a number of different things in our budget process. And the capital reserve will give us another way of holding and saving funds, keeping them in reserve for things like maintenance, capital projects, replacement of the fields, maybe 10 years when they have to be replaced, And the idea is we do this, we won't have to go out for a bond. It'll give us a way to sort of quote, save for a rainy day. And we do this in other areas. The Facilities Committee endorses going forward with this to the board. They recommend taking this forward. John?
And also, so the Facilities Committee has been looking at this since last year. And then also the Finance Advisory Committee has also looked at this. And both committees are making a recommendation to the board to establish this reserve. And I think the important language is here, you know, the funding will be coming from the unassigned fund balance. Unexpended, unassigned fund balance.
Why haven't we had this before?
I don't know.
Okay.
I really don't know. And, you know, the interesting thing is that I think what we also did was that we increased the interfund transfer. So that alleviated the need. So, you know, as you remember, I think you have been on the board 9 years, and that number has been going up from 100,000 to eventually 575,000.
This is,
And we spoke about this with Alan Casey, our auditor,
Yes,
in the fall, so, and he recommended this would be a
right.
way to help
How,
out.
how do we determine the amount that's going to get put in and when? Like what?
No, all depends at the end of the school year.
Right.
If we have unexpended, unassigned fund balance, then we can allocate into this. But the maximum amount is $10 million.
Right, but
based
who
on-
determines the allocation? Like when does that get determined as to how much of that or all of it is you know what I mean, going into?
I think it will be the administration, the superintendent will make a recommendation to the board.
You know, the board usually approves of that, and the, you know, like John said, the administration recommends.
Right,
But
so
we
the-
have to be mindful of how much we appropriate there, because
Exactly.
for audit purposes, if we just put in a bunch of money in these funds
Right, sitting there.
without that being backed by real projections as to what might be realistically needed, then the auditors will cite that and say, no, you really can't do that.
Well,
So,
we'll talk with the auditors also. The auditors
Right.
will give us a percent that we're allowed to keep, just like most of the fund balances have our.
well,
certain-
not
But it may be
exactly.
like-
There are some that, you
Some
know,
that don't.
there are
Right.
limits.
It's like the
you can see,
taxation
there's
or-
a
we
limit
anticipate
here.
this much.
We certainly would not go up to that limit. We would go up to the number that's recommended based on actual projections.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
We
Like, so
can't
the
just decide
facilities
any
committee
number.
would say, we
Right.
anticipate, or, you know, Joe would say, we anticipate in the next year, we might need
We
this,
might
and
need
you can
that.
put.
Right, because remember,
so-
it's taxpayer money, so
Yes.
we
But
don't
the-
want to hold taxpayer money for no good reason. This is to smooth out our expenditures so that the budgets
I
don't
think
spike,
there's
don't
another
have spikes.
piece
you know.
is here is that with a maximum term of 10 years. So what that really, to me, is that whatever you set aside, you have to use up in 10 years. It's a rolling amount.
We did have one, and there was a little bit left over at one point.
From the standards.
Right. Okay.
And
And
then
I
then
th-
we had to use it, and I think we used it,
I think that was a debt service.
was it debt service? thing?
Yes,
And
and then
then
we
once it
transfer
gets-
into general fund
Right,
to
and we
use
use it for like a cafeteria or something.
But once it gets appropriated and moved to this, it stays there. It can't get moved.
No,
back,
no,
or
no,
it
no.
can?
It will be moved into the capital projects for capital projects.
Okay.
Because that's why this is the capital reserve.
Okay.
And this only can be used for capital
Capital, but
projects.
not necessarily buildings.
Any capital project.
Right, it can, right. It doesn't have to be, okay. It
Has to
doesn't
be
have to
No, sorry.
be scheduled for certain things.
Jane, what
Okay.
is the
For general expense.
question?
Actually, from
Sorry.
an accounting standpoint, it's considered a capital expenditures.
Right. It's
Yeah,
not-
whatever's a capital
You
expenditure.
can't use it for general expense.
Right.
Okay.
So I think this important thing here is that, you know, I think the two committee members want to make this recommendation to the entire board. And if you are interested in going forward with this, we need to put this as a resolution for the board to approve it. And then I think is at the next board meeting, also you would direct the district clerk to place this on the ballot, because this has to be voted by approved by the voters.
Okay, so this has to be presented as an item on the agenda and not just as a presentation?
Right, so we're
Right.
just wondering.
Because we have it right here.
So the question is, are you in agreement of this concept? I think that's, you're not taking a vote right now, but
Yes.
Well, wait, well, hold on. So what we're wondering is, are you conceptually okay with moving in this direction? And then we would put it on next week's agenda for you to vote on. That's what we want to understand.
To vote, to put on
Because,
the budget, correct?
right,
Put on
because-
the
That it's on the
budget.
ballot in
The
May.
ballot.
right,
Yes.
because what we need to do tomorrow is we need to talk about this with the PTA audience, because it'll be a part of the overall picture for the budget. So conceptually, are you okay with us moving in this direction? And then next week, we'll have this on the agenda for you to vote on.
Well, I think it's a good idea, so I would be okay with it.
Yes, I think.
because this is a resolution,
Can I ask a
is the
question?
example, the very first sentence.
Do we
It
vote on it now?
it is worded as a resolution, so I thought we were voting on
Yeah,
it.
that's what I
No, but
But,
We
okay,
want to
that's okay, we
present it
can do it next.
Christine mentioned it's going to be discussed at some of these public budget forums. How does this, how would it, if for every dollar we put in this, would that raise the budget by $1?
no.
No.
This is
right.
the
It's
excess.
existing
But-
funds.
It should have no effect on the budget.
The important thing is that we have the opportunity tomorrow to meet with any voters who want to come to learn about the budget, but they need to know this piece because this is going to be on the ballot.
Right, but it could have no effect on the budget. It's whatever's over the 4%.
But it's how we're using our budget.
That's correct, but if we're going to add something to the ballot, I want to make sure that people understand it in the parent forums, that this is what's probably going to
If I'm going to vote
happen.
on it, I want to understand
Right.
it. That's why I'm
So I think that's true. So
Okay.
even
fine.
before you vote on it, I just want to make sure conceptually you're all right with this, so I can begin to talk about it tomorrow.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Do you want to do?
Do we do a quick roll call? Okay. You want to start with Allison?
I'm totally okay with that. I think it's
I'm
a
fine
good
with it.
use.
I brought it up, yes.
A here, yes.
Yes.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you. So we'll put this on next week's agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on to committee reports. The policy committee has been working on a number of policies. I know we haven't brought any up so far or discussed it, but since the fall, we've been working on just looking at the way our policies are structured, just at the beginning part of our policies, and we decided to look at discrimination, harassment, and sexual misconduct policies as a result of the interactive report that was about to come out. So we've been working on that as well. So we'll have something for the board, I hope by next week.
Okay.
We'll have a few policies for you to look at. Any other committees?
I have some things to talk about as we go through some of the business items. But from facilities, we talked again, we had some conversations about field usage, residents' use of the track and tennis courts, and how we work with the town. And that, the Zouder property, as John said, we're back at the planning board.
Why?
Pardon me?
I thought we were.
They-
I don't want to know.
It's,
We've never left the
right,
planning board.
we're still the planning board. So set up the capital reserve, that's primarily it. Some basic general stuff, but I'll go through some more as we go through.
Okay.
I'd just like to mention a few things as the BOCES liaison, or the liaison to BOCES. Frank Schnecker, who is an Austin board member as well as a BOCES board member, who is our representative, for the first time in my memory, has sent us an update. First BOCES representative to ever send us an update. And I will forward it to everybody, but basically it says things are going well at BOCES, talks about some of their offerings, and et cetera. So it's a comprehensive update, and I thank Frank publicly for that, as well as I've already thanked him privately. Secondly, the BOCES budget vote is on April 24th at 7:45 a.m. Somewhere. We decide when we vote, but it has to be voted on that day. We will have a copy of it for everybody of their budget. I'd also like to say that as of yesterday, and I haven't heard from Mary Lorenzo, the BOCES district clerk, candidates for the board of BOCES board were due for nominations, and I don't know, there's 2 seats open.
Is it uncontested?
I don't know who's even put it in. I know that
But no, there are no incumbents?
Kathy Lilborn is an incumbent, and hold on, and there's one other incumbent. I know this, don't tell me.
Are they
Because he
all?
beat me.
Are
Oh,
they-
Doug
are they
Lickett.
ru- No, but he's leaving.
Doug said he was not going to run last I spoke to him.
Right.
Doug beat me and then just served one term. So I have no idea who's re-upping or whatever. That was due yesterday. Mary hasn't sent anything out.
Okay.
I sent her an email earlier today asking. If you would follow up, I would appreciate it.
Okay. All right. So at this time, we would welcome all public comments. We would ask that you come up to the microphone and identify yourself, state your name, and you would limit your comments to 3 minutes. Any public comments today?
I'm going to sit down for a long night.
That's fine, as long as you speak into the microphone. So it's for the recording.
Okay, thanks. My name's Gary Jacobson. I live in Random Farms. I have 2 kids at Seven Bridges, and I have an older one who graduated really a couple of years ago. We've been sitting here for 3 hours and 15 minutes, and no one said the word security. You guys talked about it in the resolution early on, but no one's covered what we're doing. And the reason for that is, as far as I can determine, we're doing nothing. I sent all the board members, did you guys get a letter from me about 3 weeks ago? Can I see a show of hands?
I got your letter.
Okay. No, I got a response from the superintendent who sent me to the maintenance shack to learn about security. And we've not done anything. And I don't understand why. We have a problem in our country, and we're not going to change gun control laws. We're not going to do major things, but we can do something here in Chappaqua. There are things that I haven't heard about, like single point access. We don't have that in our buildings. I wandered around 3 of our schools in the past month unchallenged. I don't understand why. We do not have reinforced entrances to our schools. Okay? We just don't. All the damage that gets done in all these attacks happens in the first 5 minutes. Reinforced entrances would slow the guy down. We don't do that. We don't have automatic locking doors. No kid has ever been killed behind a locked door in a classroom. We don't do that. Schools all around the country have been doing it. We do nothing. We raised $42 million less than 2 years ago. Not a dime is going into protecting our kids. I don't know how you guys sleep with yourselves at night. Any comments? Don't look at her.
No, I guess, would you mind
I'm
waiting?
looking at you too.
Could you please wait until the end of the meeting, because there's certain resolutions on here
But
that...
you kind of skipped over that.
No, no.
No, we haven't gotten there yet.
So,
And you have the word future in there. I'm talking about today. I'm talking about why haven't things been done the last several years. This is Chappaqua. We're supposed to be at the forefront of this stuff, not behind.
so the district's looking to address some of the concerns that you raised, and we're going to be talking about that tonight as we get to certain resolutions within the agenda. So if you could wait till the end of the meeting and listen to what we have presented, then maybe we could have a better conversation about that.
Do
It's
I
the
have the
order
right
in
to
which
speak after you guys
It's the
present?
order in which the meeting is running, that the information that you're looking for has just not been presented yet.
I'm happy to sit here all night long if that's what it takes. Do I have the right to speak after you guys present?
There is no public comment after. We just have one public comment, but we're very flexible.
Can I read my letter for the record then?
We would be willing to hear from anyone in the audience who would like to speak at the end of the meeting. We do have a 3-minute public comment rule. If you have a letter, please feel free to submit it, but we ask you,
Well, I
if
have
you're
submitted it already.
interested to listen to what we are talking about, because a lot of the things we will be talking about are the things you mentioned.
All right.
So I think that you don't have information yet, and you will be getting it pretty shortly.
Okay, we'll see.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I missed the podium.
Yeah.
I only speak once a year, so I might go a little bit over the 3 minutes, but I speak fast. Why can't I say? As most of you know, my name is Jackie McCarthy, and my son Brady is a sophomore at Horace Greeley High School. When Brady entered 3rd grade, we moved to Chappaqua from Bedford in order for him to have the chance to be included in mainstream classes. And even though IDEA's Improvement Act of 2004 mandates that students with disabilities should be educated to the maximum extent appropriate with peers without disabilities, for some of us, having our children fully participate in mainstream classes in this country 14 years later is unfortunately still a privilege and not a right. Chappaqua numbers are impressive. 86% of students with disabilities in Chappaqua spend 80% or more of their school day in mainstream classes, as you heard from Dr. McCarthy today. And it compares with about 60% in New York State and 60% in Westchester County District schools. But what is even more impressive is that nationally, only 15% of students classified as having an intellectual disability spend 80% or more of their time mainstreamed. And yet, my son Brady, who has Down syndrome, is not only mainstreamed in all of his classes here in Chappaqua, but he thrives in them. So how do our teachers make this work when the vast majority of other schools don't? I believe you don't have to look further for that answer than Brady's school team this year. A team that Mr. Rhodes, Ms. Duback, Ms. Evers, and Dr. McCarthy helped construct and guide, and that Dr. McCarthy made sure started the year off with time over the summer to put together lesson plans for Brady. Time his case manager, Terry McKenna, said was invaluable. Brady has had many good experiences over his years here, but this year is above and beyond a standout, and I would be remiss if I didn't implore you to use them as a role model team for how inclusion works its best. I think the biggest difference this year is that his whole team not only understands but truly believes in 3 things. 1, the back to the basics principle of learning for learning's sake. 2, Dr. McCarthy's motto of presume competence. And 3, the importance of differentiated teaching. I want to share with you a couple of examples. In English class, when Ms. McKenna assigned Brady a 4-paragraph essay at the beginning of the year, I quickly pointed out to her that per his IEP, we're just working on attempting a 4-sentence, 1-paragraph essay. Her response, I could do that if you want, but he can do this. His IEP shouldn't hold him back. It will be fully scaffolded, he'll do fine. And with the 5-paragraph essay he just completed, Mr. Petruso, his other English teacher, helped show him how we could expand the content of his paragraphs even further. English teachers have always had trouble figuring out how to give Brady a grade in class. This year, not only did they put Brady in charge of following their grading rubric himself that they created for him for his writing pieces, but he received his first A ever in an English class last quarter. In global class, his teachers, Ms. Sullivan and Ms. McGagran-Candela, keep an eye on Brady throughout class. And when they see him perhaps drifting, they look for what they call a point of entrance, where they can engage him and pull his attention back. Yvette Sullivan is always trying to challenge him when testing his knowledge, and he keeps rising to that challenge. They're always finding new and unique ways of making sure that he's participating within the class and within the different teams that he has in the class. The way she explains her viewpoint is that when she teaches Brady to use historical documents to gather information to answer questions, it's not because she wants him to forever know what the Treaty of Versailles was, but she wants him to know how to use documents of any type to gather information for any reason. It's learning for learning's sake, which will teach him a skill he will be able to utilize in many aspects of his life going forward. In biology class, Ms. Towle and Ms. Fletcher are always finding ways to help Brady take an active role in labs.
I move we allow it to continue.
Yep.
Okay.
You have to vote on that. You have to
We
make
have
a
to vote.
motion. Yeah.
Go.
Yeah.
Vote.
Thank you. I appreciate the extra time.
Yep.
Ms. Fletcher has expressed to me how excited she is that all of his teachers have been working as a team to work towards some of Brady's goals. She's been very appreciative of Dr. Shine, Brady's speech teacher's active role in pulling the group together to encourage everyone to expect Brady to answer in full sentences and for them to offer him every opportunity to present in front of his classmates, which he has done more times than I can count this year, continuously improving in no small part to what he's learned from Mr. Gellert in his acting class, to have confidence, improvise, and always be entertaining. And of course, algebra and Mr. Franks and Dr. Schlinger continue to be one of his favorite classes because, as Brady puts it, he's just so good at it. Film class was new for him this year with Miss Autumnelli, who opened his eyes to a whole new world, producing mini films with his classmates that were so encouraging to him and let him know what a good actor they all thought he was. And to round out his classes, his teaching assistants, in particular Miss Fries, worked diligently to know when to push in and when to stand back. Brady has had such a successful academic year, but inclusion, as we talked about tonight, is more than being in mainstream classes. Brady's also a member of the Breakfast Club, the Sign Language Club, and the Improv Club. He joined the wrestling team this year, where Coach DeBella stopped each tournament to call everyone's attention to the special showcase match of Brady and one of his teammates to ensure that Brady received thunderous applause. And the type of recognition that we get from all the other schools that they compete from, they're all so happy to see Brady participate. And I'll go up to Coach DeBella and congratulate him on the good work he's doing. He has recently joined the spring track team, excited to work with Coach Miller, who is also his reading specialist. Brady also attended the homecoming dance, and some nice senior girl treated him to his first slow dance, which, as you can imagine, made his night. During the fall pep rally, he won a prize for Best Spirit Costume for Sports Day, which he excitedly told me was the first time he's ever won anything. Some of his peers asked Brady to be a coach for their team in the upcoming fun ball tournament. In every lunch period, he has his choice of various groups and invite him to join them. At one lunch period, one of his wrestling teammates was eager to show the rest of the group a video of Brady's latest wrestling showcase, which impressed them all. Invited to his first Sweet 16 party this year, which was arranged through Facebook, got me to finally put a Facebook page together for him, and he already has 150 Grilly peers that have befriended him. More friends than I have on Facebook. So this right to be educated with one's peers that is too often looked as a privilege can be achieved with the right outlook from both the teachers and the students. And when done right, the impact it can have on a child is life-changing. It is a privilege that we are so fortunate to have woven into the fabric of our Chappaqua schools, and I can only hope other school districts look to us as an example of what's possible.
Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you.
I feel like I'm on the Oprah show. Can you hear me? Mm-hmm. Yes. Karen Basic. I'm here just to, I wasn't planning to speak, but I wanted to just address thank you to the board and the administration, the special ed department, for hiring the transition coordinator. Our district did not have this position before, but the transition coordinator has been, for many of us, such a godsend, because our students, our special needs students, are transitioning out, and they have the option to stay in school till they're 21, but many of our students sort of leave in between. And when you transition out of the public school system, you are faced with a huge list of to-dos. You have to potentially register your child with Social Security. You have to have your child, does your child apply or meet the standards for the Office of People with Developmental Disabilities? Do you go to the Office of Mental Health? Do you go to Access VR? You are faced with a huge choice. In addition, if you're fortunate enough for your child to go to college, what college are you going to go to? Now, Warren, I know you talked about the high school graduation, and for many of us it was a sigh of relief because we wanted our children to have a chance to have a diploma. Upon looking to see what jobs my son might get without a diploma, I found it was cosmetology. With 5 years of occupational therapy, that was not going to happen. So we're pleased that he's following a track and looking toward college. And sitting, if you want to know what happened with this position and how it works, he meets with the student, they fill out a questionnaire, and then he meets with the parent, who also fills out the same questionnaire, and then you meet together with the guidance counselor or a therapist, and you go over what plans. He gives you a to-do list. Have you contacted this organization, that? Kerry is very knowledgeable, more knowledgeable than the staff, and that's what's so helpful, because he's able to give parents options and help make plans that will work, that will change for each student. It's been, my friend Elle and I have been going to workshop after workshop, and I know I walked out one day after we went to one ARC workshop from 9 to 1, and then we came here from 7 to 10, and I just went, because there's just so much information you're presented with. So having someone like Kerry to help ground you, help you make a list, help you to make a plan is really imperative. And he knows things too that some of the department people may not know. Like I was told, we are fortunate enough, my son can enroll in the community college getting ready for college program. But I was told to enroll, but then when I went online, they said you need a high school diploma. And when I said to Kerry at the transition workshop, they told me this, he's like, no. You know, they did this in Somers. You know, we'll have, you know, the special ed department help you with that. So that's font of knowledge is so important. So I feel like every dime that went into this man's position has been worth it. He's held several workshops for parents. He's met with us individually. He's very affable, easy to talk to. The kids can relate to him. It was money very well spent. So if you continue on with this, I would say it's good, because the success of the school is the success of the student. So thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you. Does anyone else have a comment? No? Okay. So we will move on. I'm tempted to take a break, but I think we should move on.
Fine.
Adam, you want to stay or go? Okay. More. Just.
You haven't scared me yet.
That's why we did your appointment first.
Okay. All right. We'll move on to approval of the minutes. I'd like to have a motion and second to approve the minutes of February 13th and of March 1st.
I asked that you take them separately because I was not at the March 1st meeting and I'll be abstaining from that.
Okay, yes. Fair enough, yes. May I have a motion? A motion and a second
I move
to accept
3.1.
I second 3.1.
Any comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion and second on item 3.2, minutes of March 1st.
I move 3.2.
A second?
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
I recommend 4.1 instructional as presented.
I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation on item 4.1.
I
Okay.
second that.
Good. Any further questions on that? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I recommend 4.2 non-instructional as presented.
I recommend that we accept the superintendent's recommendation.
I second.
Questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
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 We have a motion to approve, let's see, which one was it?
It's the first one.
Okay.
The first one.
Item 5.1, the CSE summaries for the 2017-18 school year, as reported to the board on March 7th as modified.
I move 5.1 as modified.
A second?
Any further questions? All in favor, please say aye.
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 We have a motion and a second on item 5.2, CSE summaries, 2018 to 19 school year, as reported on March 7th.
I move 5.2.
I second 5.2.
Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We have a motion to accept the recommended award for the graduation tent and chair. It's very exciting. To Cantel Tent Rentals.
I move 5.3.
I will second 5.3. Any questions on the tent?
Beautiful.
Is it the same tent that we always get? Okay, great.
The big top.
That's great. Yeah, that has weathered a lot of storms
Yes.
and horizontal rain and all of that.
Kept us all dry.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
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 May I have a motion to accept the recommended bid award for plumbing to Anthony M. Notaro Plumbing and Heating.
So moved.
I second that.
Any questions? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. May I have a motion to approve an agreement with Student Assistance Services, Project Success. This is for substance abuse counseling.
I so move 5.5.
Okay, I will second. Any questions? We've been doing this for a number of years, so this
Yeah.
is a continuation of that. Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, item 5.6, may I have a motion and a second to approve the resolution to allow our school district... You have to take it off the table. May I have a motion to take the
I move we
the
take item
resolution...
5.6 off the table.
It's the resolution, item 5.6. Okay,
I second.
second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Now may I have a motion to approve that same resolution, which allows our district to participate in the joint bidding of commodities according to specifications prepared by BOCES steering committee, which agreement we commit to purchasing these commodities at the lowest bid price recommended by the steering committee with the right to reject and/or modify the recommendations.
I move what you just said.
I second.
Okay. So we had questions about this resolution, and one of my questions was, at what point are we allowed to reject or modify? If we accept,
This is actually the list that the BOCES compiled with the input from all the purchasing agents. And these are the commodities that they are going out to bid, but we have no commitment to purchase any of them if we don't want to. So it's really up to the school district they will provide a list, and we will purchase whatever we want to
It's
purchase
an
from this
opt-in,
list.
not an opt-out.
Right.
so, but I guess my question is, if we opt in now, can we opt out? It's not an opt-in or opt-out.
It's opt-out
At one
by
point.
item.
It's, okay, okay.
We basically, what we are saying here is that we are going to participate.
Okay.
We've opted into
We're-
the
we're-
consortium.
Right,
and then
we're
we can
we're
opt
opting in,
in.
but we're not bound
At
to
any
take
time,
any of
That's
this
right.
at any time. We're not
Absolutely.
bound to do
We
anything.
did
I-
check, and that's the case.
I think that was our
Yes.
question.
Yes.
Were there any other questions?
That was a big
No.
question.
Okay,
No.
all right. So all in favor, please say aye.
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 Can I ask that we take 5.9, because 5.7, 5.8, 5.10 are very similar.
I think so, yeah. I noticed that. Okay, so we'll go out of order. May I have a motion to approve item 5.9, which is a gift from the Greeley Sports Boosters to the athletic program for batting cages at Horace Greeley High School?
I move item 5.9.
I'll second.
Okay. Thank you so much to the Sports Boosters.
Wait, we have to approve, right?
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, so we'll go to item 5.7, which is, we'll start the discussion by doing the motions. I have a motion to approve the entering into of an agreement with Altaris Consulting to perform safety and security assessments. This would be to the elementary and middle schools.
I move 5.7.
A second.
Okay, do you want to have the discussion?
Yes.
Now.
Okay, so back in October, I had asked the board to allow Altaris to come and do an assessment of the high school based on the project that was taking place across the street, which is almost ready for our students and for our families to be able to engage with. And one of the concerns that we had was the level of traffic that could wind up wandering. It's over here to the high school area, specifically since these weren't residents, right? So it could be anyone coming in to use Whole Foods or any other facility in that area, and we were concerned with the way that Greeley was structured and was wondering if they could provide some recommendations of some things that we could consider maybe doing better to secure our high school. So that assessment was completed, and based on their recommendations, we've made a few modifications. So the first, as you all know, after the Parkland incident, we secured our building by adding additional security, because we do have an open campus. We don't have a single point entrance. So in the areas where the doors were flexible, we had additional security guards placed there. We also made sure that none of the doors in the back could be accessed by putting up additional fencing. We also substantially are increasing our cameras not only outside of Greeley, but all of our schools. And a lot of that work was done in the fall, and we're in the process of purchasing those cameras right now, and they'll be installed. So we've increased our surveillance outside. Some of the recommendations that they shared with us, we already had in place. So they strongly recommended anonymous alerts. We all know that we have that in our middle school and our high school. They recommend a social emotional program for our students. In the high school, we have our ruler program that allows us to have a comprehensive support program for our students that we may look to expand throughout the district. That's some of the work that's being conducted in strategic planning. And we also have our student life coordinator who looks to make connections with kids who may be disconnected in Greeley. So we had a lot of the social emotional learning and recommendations already in place for our kids. So what I'm suggesting, before I get into the major part of our discussion around this report, is that we have this company come in and evaluate all of our buildings now, our middle schools and our high schools. So that's what this resolution is supporting tonight. The recommendations, I think Joe Gramado, who is our Director of Security, found helpful. It was another eye from a different company that works with many districts across the region, and also with colleges and universities. A different perspective to come in and look at our facilities allowed us to make some recommendations based on their experiences in other places, so we found it very helpful. So what I'm asking is for you to consider allowing them to do their work in the other buildings and then reviewing that work with us as well.
And to add to that, we've had security reviews by BOCES in the past. Is that right? That's my understanding. We've been doing that all along, but this is just a different security company and just a different kind of expertise.
So what this company has done for us is it's provided us a comprehensive report that allowed us to make some decisions based on their recommendations. What I like about this company is that they work with neighboring districts that have a similar philosophy to how their buildings are structured that we do. Mm-hmm. So they work with Scarsdale, they work with Katona, so they're able to pull from their experiences in those districts and help us understand what are some things that our colleagues are doing that we may want to consider here. I also think it's prudent, based on the current climate, that we've done the analysis of Greeley. We should do the analysis of the other 5 buildings now, and the company's willing to do that, even though they're being inundated with work, because they've had this previous relationship with us.
When I went to the meeting, what was that, a week or so ago?
March 1st, I wasn't there.
March 1st? It's 2 weeks ago.
You had your own private.
I guess, I wanted to hear what they had to say, because whenever consultants come in, you want to say, I was impressed by their thoroughness. I think you always have to take everything with a grain of salt, but I think they took a good look at what we were doing. And is everything going to be perfect? Maybe not, but I think it's a good place to start. And I mean, we can use them, and if we find out we want to do something else, we can do more investigations. But I think it's a great place to start.
I think it's also important to note that we won't be able to talk about everything we do regarding security, because that in itself is a security risk. So we'll share with the community everything we can possibly share that's prudent to share, but just be aware that we may not be able to share all security measures, okay, and which is very typical.
And I would just like to comment and also address to Mr. Jacobson. We do have a protocol with who answers the mail here, which we try and follow, but we want to make sure that your concerns are heard. And what I can say, as a new board member this year, obviously I'm unaware of previous things that were done, except to know that obviously people handle things in a very thorough fashion. I can comment, which I've been appreciative of since Christine got here. There have been numerous advances made in terms of securing our building. It was a concern from the beginning in securing Greeley, and now looking further, and this was taking place before the Parkland tragedy. So I understand the frustration of Mr. Jacobson and other community members, but I wanted to thank Christine here to say that this has been a topic of conversation. We are moving towards trying to figure out the best way to secure our buildings while still maintaining some semblance of a campus that our students recognize and feel comfortable in. That's not a fortress. We want it safer. We have an open campus. That's how it was designed. It's very difficult to immediately turn that around, but we are taking steps to do that in terms of actual building security and also the social and emotional component, which plays a factor in all of this. So I personally want to thank Christine and thank the board and thank everyone here that is trying to do this in some sort of systematic way that we make correct decisions. So I know it's very difficult for the community to sometimes, understand that. They don't see the immediate results of it. But as Vicki said, part of that is we can't openly talk about what security measures we're taking, except I do want to say they are being addressed.
And I was impressed with the consultant because while obviously the current climate and unfortunately, way too many events have occurred that are tragic, he was also addressing other safety issues. and probably the more common and more likely safety issues that happen in schools. And he was familiar with all of those other hosts of security risks and potential problems. So it wasn't just reacting to this, it was also a holistic view on what really does happen in schools and what risks we need to address that we may not have thought about before.
And I want to say that, and I know that we'll be talking about this with the other items, but what I have seen in terms of proposals with the physical plant would be very much in keeping with the feeling of an open campus at Greeley. I think that we don't want our schools to feel like prisons, because that makes kids feel insecure as well. So we want the changes to maintain the character of our schools as much as possible, and we've seen some design options that do just that in a very, very effective and also aesthetically pleasing and sort of warm and nurturing design. So I'm really pleased by all of that. And I also want to say that we do want to work with the community, although we can't really talk about all security measures, but we really do invite collaborative and positive feedback so that we can work effectively together.
I have a couple of questions. I unfortunately was unable to attend the March 1st meeting, so I had a separate meeting with this gentleman from Mount Terrace. I believe it was La Placa.
John LaPlaca, yeah.
I have a totally different takeaway than I guess apparently my other 4 board members. I thought one, his credibility was terrible, especially with these glaring mistakes in his report. 2, he couldn't answer most of my questions or refused to. I can't even tell what the answer was there. 3, I actually happen to think we should have a comprehensive review. I thought we were discussing item 5.7 here. I don't think this is the person to do it. I'd really like to know what his qualifications are, other than he did other schools.
So he was a commander with the Yorktown Police Department for 22 years.
I'm sorry, he's a what?
He was a commander in the town of Yorktown. He's the former police lieutenant for 22 years. He's been in private practice for 10 years. He's had a staff of 5 consultants and other support personnel. Currently works with over 35 school districts and 150 public and private schools. Vast majority of his business is in Lower New York, some out of state districts as well. He's currently working in Bedford, Tarrytown, Scarsdale, White Plains, Lakeland, Peekskill, Croton, Hartman, Katona, Bedford, Arlington, Merrick, West Babylon, Pelham, Kennedy, and Blind Brook. Those are just a few of his schools on his reference list.
I don't see that he works somewhere else as a qualification. I'm going to vote against this, not because I think we shouldn't do this. In fact, I think we should do this. I think that he is the wrong person to do this for our district. I am scared that we're just going to blindly follow this gentleman's recommendations.
Well, I would say you take a consultant's recommendations and you synthesize those and you figure out what you want to do, what you don't want to do. You can also quote. We've had him. We've had BOCES. We can hire another consultant if we need to. We also have.
How do we know if we need to? Why don't we hire another consultant now?
But how do you know when the other consultant's going to?
We don't, except that we would do this.
Okay.
Better due diligence on that.
But the other point is, we have Eric Kyer with KGB.
Yeah, we
who's
haven't
looking
gotten
at
to that
this.
yet, so let's.
Okay,
Right now
we'll
we're
stick to
specifically
Alteris,
about-
okay.
Yeah.
But I think this gentleman seems like he's qualified.
I was impressed by his depth of knowledge. He answered all of our questions in detail, and he made suggestions that made sense to all of us based on our school.
I just felt
And I was impressed by his knowledge
cookie cutter
and
approach with his little
expertise.
checkboxes to looking at different items, and he just went down the list. And then when I asked him specific questions about risk and reward and whatnot, he was there.
Well, what risk and reward? I don't know.
You know what? I would like to comment on that, because I think that the one thing that I will say with Jeffrey in terms of risk, there is another component to this, which is what really is the risk of something happening in a school. All of us are very fearful. But if you do look at numbers, your children are more likely to be harmed by something certainly other than a school shooting. It's a horrifying thing, but in terms of a risk assessment, I think that's accurate. What we are trying to do here is create the best environment we can. We are using the technologies that we can to make the school safe from a physical standpoint, and then we have to look into the risk aspect, and that gets into another social and emotional piece, which is that a big part of prevention here is really addressing the mental health of the students in our schools. So I think that these two approaches have to be combined. I may disagree with Jeffrey in terms of the qualifications of the consultant, but I agree that another huge piece of this is making sure that our students are addressed so that the students with the problems do not do this, and we help them in different ways to prevent that. So that's...
Also, I just want to, Alice, I've been talking now, but I just want to say, Jeffrey, I understand your perspective, but I don't think that we are looking at this in terms of a risk-benefit analysis. I'm not sure, this has not been an emotional process. This has been a very deliberate and fact-based process. This has been a result of direct observation and assessment of our physical facilities in an objective way. But we are not looking at this in terms of a risk-benefit analysis point of view. We're not going to say that because the risk is low, that we're not going to go ahead with certain security measures. Because, a risk-benefit analysis, to me, is something you do at a company level when you're looking at profits and bottom line. We're looking at our students and our parents as well, in terms of their confidence. And so we just,
I'd like to.
This
I
wasn't
think
a
that-
knee-jerk reaction. We did this
No,
in October.
I think that,
Christine,
I'm
when
just
do we
trying to
hire
say
you?
that a risk assessment
October.
analysis is
October
not
11th.
really,
Right. Well, and
I
also,
think, something that's
we've all
relevant
been sold,
to us.
home security systems by people that say, "Oh, you're going to get a Spider-Man burglar on the 6th floor, and you better put." He didn't do that. He gave us an assessment of where he sees vulnerabilities
And
for
we can
issues
pick and choose
not
things.
just about school shooting. He was very, very clear that the risks he was trying to address, that he looked at in October and presented this to us in December before Parkland, were about the more likely risks: theft, custody issues, cars in the wrong place. He was very, very, very broad in what he was looking at as far as risk. That was one area that we were looking at, but he had a whole host of other issues that he had addressed in other school districts. And again, he did this assessment in December, and I think he was looking at it through a broad lens and not being knee-jerk in any way, shape, or form.
To reiterate what Jane said, to Christine, we did this when you came into the district, Christine. You saw that there was a possible openness, and where can we look at how we close this up a little bit. So we hired this gentleman this company in October to take a look at a broader brush of what's going on, not just a specific.
And so I'm not disputing that we should have this analysis done. In fact, I not only not dispute it, I support it. I don't think this is the right person to do the analysis. I am not comfortable with him doing it. I will vote no. If you all want to go ahead and vote yes, go ahead. I can't tell you any different. But I think that there are other companies out there. I think there are other people. I don't think we lose much time by having somebody else come in and look at it. We are talking about the safety of our kids, and I'm not comfortable with him making those sort of recommendations.
Okay. Is there anything else?
No.
Anyone else wants to add? Okay. I would note that we can hire consultants at any time,
We can, and we're about to do it.
whether or not we hire someone now.
And even if we
we
hire
can
him,
always
we
hire
still
another
decide
other
whether to take his
consultants.
recommendations or not.
That's right.
Or hire another consultant.
How are you
Okay.
doing?
So I think everyone has said everything they have to say. So I think we'll take a vote. Okay, so we've had a motion and a second, so all in favor of approving an agreement with Alteris to conduct the same sort of security audit that they did for Greeley at the other schools. So all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed?
I want to say nay or aye or whatever I'm supposed to say when I'm opposed.
Okay.
Nay? Aye?
Nay.
Nay. Nay.
Okay. Okay, so it's 4-1, Lisa.
Okay, so the next, I'm sorry, you have to
So I do
the next
motion,
for the
okay.
next one.
So may I have a motion and a second on item 5.8 to approve an agreement with KG&D for projects, architectural projects focused on one point of entry security at all 6 schools.
I move item 5.8.
I second 5.8.
Okay.
All right, it's just easier for me to explain if I go. So one of the things the consultant company recommended, and then we asked KD&G to look at, was a single point of entrance for the high school, and then for the other 5 buildings to create people tracks.
Mantra.
Well, I was going to say mantra, I'm trying to be politically correct. What these traps are at the other buildings would be, you would have to come up to the building and be buzzed in by the security guard, and then you would be able to get into the building until the security went through and were vetted, and then you can go into the building.
It's more of a vestibule type of
yeah.
situation.
I mean, I can show you a little bit, but these are all drafts because we haven't approved the work, and we just wanted to have some kind of conceptual idea of what this could look like so we could talk about whether or not it made sense to move forward to have KG&G really do some renderings for our consideration. Of course, this all costs money, so that's a consideration as well. So let me just start with Greeley. So our task was to look at how we have such an open front. How can we have a single point entry for this building? So again, this is just a draft, but what KPMG had done, they're our architects, is that they created a single point entry right in between the cafeteria and the main office. And their idea was that from the cafeteria all the way down to the gym, this would be 3M glass. So it would be a see-through appearance in the front, but all traffic would have to be funneled in through this people trap right here. So that would mean that if you're during the school day, if you wanted to come on campus, or if kids left campus and then were coming back from lunch, everyone would have to go through here, and we would make sure that you belonged here as one of our kids, or you went through a process to make sure you wound up in the right place. Because our concern could be, or would be, that people, if they don't go through a controlled area such as this, could possibly get into different areas of the building without being vetted first. So one of the things that I'm asking the board to consider tonight is to allow KD&D to do work to really construct something in the front here for your consideration as a board as to whether or not you want to allow the community to support a project like this through a referendum, because obviously this would be outside the scope of our traditional project. So this is the first work that we asked them to do. So John, can you just go back 2 slides to show them? Right here. So this is conceptually, again, this is what a glass front looks like. And there are some videos that can show you what 3M glass is and how you can't really penetrate it because it's made in a way that it's really stable. So again, this is conceptual work.
Go back a second, John. I believe the upper, go back. The top right is
This one?
that one. That's John Jay Middle School. And the next slide. The bottom right is I think that's Somers.
That's White Plains.
That's White Plains High School, right? One of
This
them's Somers,
this
right?
one is White Plains.
What about the other one?
What's the top right?
I don't remember.
I don't know the top right.
We just kind of wanted to, because what we don't want is we don't want to lose the feel of our buildings. And we do have a beautiful campus and it's very open. So this was a way that KD&G initially presented as a method to preserve what's important to us, but also to secure the front, as recommended by the consultant. And then maybe I could just show you, John, just pick one of our smaller buildings. Okay, this is good. This is a little bit. So this is Seven Bridges?
West
Orchard.
West Orchard, okay. So the idea would be in West Orchard, and it's different by building, so the construction is different because our fronts are so, Seven Bridges and Bell are like totally different. But the idea would be, again, what I had explained before, and what they had done is come up with some drafts of what the front would look like if we had a buzzer system in the front door and a buzzer system to allow you into the building, and then just a security guard here that will control that traffic.
So this is it. So what you really do is that when you come in, there will be two sets of locked doors. This is the first set, and this is the second set. And then the security guard will be over here. And therefore, they see you, and you talk through a speaker, and then you show some ID that you actually is legit, and then you get into the first part, and this is the people hold. And the person will be here, sitting here, and talking, and you get your driver's license and process them.
And that's the main office at West Orchard.
Right. But I think
Yes.
at all of these schools, from the drawings I saw, they really
Right.
fit into the architecture very seamlessly. And I think once it's done, it's going to look like it was always there. So
Right.
it's almost as if every building provided a space
out
for
of the
that.
5 schools, other than Greeley, the Greeley obviously requires major construction.
Right.
Really just Grafflin will require additional building to build out because they don't have
Yeah, Seven
place.
Bridges is.
And then also
very
Seven
easy.
Bridges may require some building, but
Bell.
they have a space, and Bill doesn't. We went there to look at it.
So, Eric Kyer presented to us at
Pass it down,
the morning meeting on March 1st, and he presented again at the Facilities Committee meeting. And he showed some rough elevations that Christine and John just showed.
Can you pass that down, Jeff?
What this recommendation is this proposal is saying is, we want Eric to create a couple more elevations, prepare a pre-bond design and budget so we can determine what we would have to ask the community to look to budget for and maybe go for bond for if we wanted to do this. I think we all agree that security is, and with the mental health aspects, is one of the most important things we can do. So I think we need Eric Kyer, and it's the Facilities Committee's recommendation that we let him do these elevations and present them to us, and then we can determine where we stand.
And I'd also like to mention, and John, maybe you could talk a little bit about your conversations with the Safety and Health and Safety Committee.
Yeah, okay. So what we did was that we first, Eric Carr came and made a presentation to the Facilities Committee. And he went through the entire process, talked about the design, and he went school by school. And obviously he spent the most time on the Greeley. And at the end, all the Facilities Committee members who were at the meeting actually came out and strongly endorsed this to go forward. And so that's the first group. And then a week later, we talked to the school district health and safety committee, and we talked about this concept, and they also really felt very strongly about this plan, and they wanted me to tell Christine that as a committee, they also endorsed this concept and this plan.
And then just for a little perspective, we did a survey, 12 districts didn't answer, but of all the districts of high schools that had single point entries versus those that didn't, this is not for the community at large to know, obviously, but I just wanted to give you some perspective of how many districts in our area have actually moved in this direction. So what I'm asking you to do tonight is allow Eric to continue with his work, and then I'd like to start talking about this, so I would like to talk about it with the PTA tomorrow at 7 o'clock.
And in addition, you're saying that this is also a recommendation from the Facilities Committee and from the Health and Safety Committee, so you have discussed this with more than just us. There have been discussions with community members as well.
Can I ask a few questions? One, just for the record, I was not at that facilities committee meeting where he presented. Two, at the meeting I met him at, he gave some estimates on cost. Are we going to go public with that, or?
I think we're gonna find, I think we'd like to look at the elevations
What he
first.
told me was 100 to 200,000 per. The other 5 schools, and about 6 million to 7 million for the high school.
The high school altogether is about 8 to
Yes, we are
9,000,
public.
8 to 9,000 square feet. And I just want to tell you, I have further conversation with him. I'm not talking about the dollar amount. I just told him that when he has to finish this, because all depends. If we are going forward with this, with a referendum, and if we want this referendum to be on the May 15 vote, then he basically has to finish this work by the next board meeting. That's the deadline.
And I had, my third point is, Mr. Jacobson brought it up. We're making some, it seems to me, and I guess we'll get to it on the next item, but we're making some sort of assumption that there's only one way to pay for this, and that's a bond. We raised $42 million. We haven't spent it all yet. I don't know the legality of changing the purpose of it is, but there are many ways to finance this besides a $7 million bond.
I would like to, and just to your point, Jeff, I think there's some people that I'd like to contact to see if they would help offset some of the costs associated with this, but I don't feel comfortable doing that until Eric
the cost really
is
is.
approved to do the work, and then we move forward with the next resolution. And then I would begin to have those conversations. I'd also like to talk about this with the PTA group tomorrow night to see what their feeling is about it. And I mean, it is true. In the end, this could cost $8 to $10 million for the whole thing. Let's just be very transparent about it. But until Eric does the work that we need him to, we can't really give definitive figures of how much this will exactly cost.
Again, this is a pre-bond, a pre-design, and it's a pre-bond budget to try and get us an idea of what.
So what we are asking KG&D to do, if the board approve this resolution, is to do the pre-bond design and the budget, because we need both to go forward. And right now, yes, he did talk about large sums, but he really doesn't. He hasn't really put real numbers down.
You
But
think,
he
you
did.
think the numbers will be lower than what he said?
I think so.
And Christina's saying we may have other options as
Yes,
well.
and also just
not
another two
necessarily a
pieces,
bond.
just learn from the last time. So what we really do is that whatever it is, if we're going to bond, and obviously if we can get other funding sources, great. If we don't, if this is voters approved and SED approved, because we had to go through the process for SED approval, we get 33.6%. Okay, so that's a state aid. And then also, just want to mention one thing is that because this particular budget for 18-19, we added 3 security guards. If we at Greeley we go to the single entrance, we may not need those 3 security guards. So there's $100,000 there. I'm just putting it out there. So
I think what we're doing here is we're preserving all of our options by taking these votes.
And now we're voting just to move forward so we can get these plans drawn and get numbers
Exactly.
drawn up.
And in a way, authorizing me to begin really talking about it publicly.
Yes.
Okay.
So can we move?
Okay, are we ready to vote on item 5.8? Any other questions that we have? Okay. All right, we had a motion and a second. All in favor of approving item 5.8, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great, thank you. So now we'll move on again with the same goal of preserving our options. I would ask for a motion and a second on item 5.10.
I move
This is, it's regarding capital projects consisting of safety and security repairs to all the buildings and facilities of the school district, and having that being the proposed action, declared a type 2 action pursuant to SECRA regulations, stating that those will not have any significant environmental impacts. So we have a motion and a second.
I move 5.10.
I'll second.
Okay. Are there any questions on the SECRA resolution?
I just want to say, when the night of Parkland, I wrote a draft that I was going to send to everybody about my feelings about security and risk and fear and anxiety and all of that. And what I came down to was I have no confidence that the federal government or the state government is going to do anything other than potentially pass school security legislation that forces expenses down to the school level. I don't think they're going to address the major issues. I don't know. I'm not even going to opine on that. But they're going to either mandate or push down certain school safety measures because that's politically expedient, because no one's going to vote against that. So, and they don't have to pay for it. So I knew this was going to happen. But the point is we want to do it our way, and we want to do it that preserves the feel of the schools where kids feel safe and are safer, but also have that kind of warm, nurturing environment that they're used to. And so, but I also don't feel that we as a board are able to determine what the community really wants and what the community is willing to pay for. And so in that email, I said, I think we need to do a bond, because I think that we need to really let the community get a sense of what this will entail and what it will potentially look like and what it will cost, and let them make the decision, because it's really a community effort.
It is a community decision.
And I think that this is the way forward, is to involve the community the way the democracy is supposed to work, and to give them the options and to see what the impact will be on the budget, the impact it'll be on other parts of the school district. But this is the community's choice, because they're the ones that have to send their kids to school.
I think I just want to also add one thing, because I just want to mention this, is during our facilities committee meeting when Eric Kyle was making the presentation. At that meeting, we also have a few past board members who are very familiar with our buildings. And I still remember Randy Catcher was very enthusiastic about this project. And also, I remember, I think Christine and Warren can also talk about this. Of all the people, Karen Visser actually made a very emotional pledge to support this. She felt that this is really needed, and I was actually very touched by her support. So,
I got a couple of questions. Again, two things. One, putting a specific bond in front of the voters is just a binary decision. It doesn't tell you what they would put up, how much money they would accept. It only tells you whether they would accept what we put up. If we put up a $10 million bond, doesn't mean they wouldn't accept a $5 million bond or a $12 million bond.
Isn't that our job, though?
We'll get to that. Secondly, I think we're putting the sequel before the barn, with the cart before the horse here. Apparently we have 45 days to do this. Until we approve it, why don't we, I don't really understand why we have to rush to the secret now. We still have 45 days before, but next board meeting, we would still have 45 days before
Jeff,
the thing.
Jeff, I'll talk about that, but finish all your comments, and then I'll talk about the timing part.
You cut me off, go ahead.
Okay, so the timing. So really the 45 days is that if there's a vote, which is right now is May 15th, we don't have to vote on May 15th.
We can do
but
like we did 2 years
if
ago.
we are going to do it, let's just assume we're going to do it on May 15th. That's the easiest, because there is a vote, and we'll round up a lot of people to come out to vote on that day anyway.
I understand that this thing it doesn't expire, it goes on, and I
Right.
get that.
Okay. So let's.
So we're not going to do it any sooner than May 15th, right?
Right. No.
No.
So-
So we could always do the sequel later on.
No. So let's assume that we're going to do May 15th.
Okay.
So the 45 days is that 45 days before the vote, you have to advertise. So that is the deadline. So you have to direct the district clerk to place whatever you want to be on the ballot. Definitely we're going to have budget vote, and definitely we're going to have candidates.
March 30th is that date.
So March 30th or 31st, we had to be in the newspaper.
That's 2 weeks, two more meetings.
However, no, you only have one meeting.
Okay.
Because we have two more meetings. One is the 21st, one is the 28th. 28th is Wednesday. Your ad has to come out on that Friday.
Okay, so the 21st.
Yeah, so it has to be 21st.
When
And
do we plan
therefore,
on
that's why
voting
I
on whether or
give,
not to do a
that's
bond?
why I gave Eric Kyle the deadline, that he has to finish within a week.
That's why I suggest we wait until we see Eric's things and then make
we
that
don't-
decision on the
but the
21st.
idea is
It's just-
we're working
I don't
this-
understand why we have to jam this through.
Because we're not. We're
We are jamming it through.
No,
Let's
we're-
find out what
we're-
Eric's proposal is going to be, and we have plenty of time to do the sequel and the bond on the thing.
We're doing this in parallel, is what we're doing.
But doing the secret doesn't mean we have to do
But
anything.
we're doing this
No.
in
We don't
parallel.
have to do a
Why don't we
bond.
do sequels every week then?
Because we don't have a proposal before
But the
us.
idea is
We don't have a proposal for us now, that's my point.
We have Eric working on the elevations and the budget. We do the secret at the same time. If we decide we don't want to do a bond, or the community says no, or we think it's too much or too little, then we don't do it. But if we don't do the secret now, we don't have an option for May 15th, we don't have an option for June 15th, and you know, we're not really going to put a bond to the community in the middle of the summer. That means you'd probably want to do it in
October.
October.
Tuesday.
So you do in October, now everything gets pushed out another
It's
year.
14 months to get through.
There's no reason to wait.
Right now, the review process is 10 months.
Right, and we're asking if that can be
Expedited.
for security issues across the state. However, if you don't do it, doing it now doesn't hurt anything, Jeffrey.
It doesn't bind us to anything, and it gives us options.
It doesn't
As
do
simple as
anything.
that.
That's it.
Because all it is bad board protocol.
How is it bad board protocol?
You don't put a sequel before you even having a proposal. I just don't understand that. There's no reason why we couldn't do it next week.
Jeff, why don't you say you just don't want to do it?
I don't want to do what?
All the security. Do you have kids in the school?
Could you please put him in order?
Out of order, I'll be quiet.
Thank you.
Okay, I will give you an opportunity to talk. We're almost done with the meeting, and I understand the concerns, and we want to hear from you. So you'll have a chance to come up to the microphone, I promise.
I'm all for it.
Jeffrey,
by the way, doing
I'm
secret.
sorry.
I think we're doing it out of order.
You're entitled to vote the way you want.
Yes, I think that's right.
I just don't understand the reason to wait. What is the reason for not doing it? You're citing a
I
protocol
haven't
that
gotten a
doesn't
good
exist.
I haven't gotten a good reason to do it before we have a bond proposal. And here's the other scary part, by the way, because I actually do think we should put up some sort of proposal. What if the community says no? Are we going to not take any action? It's a kind of a scary concept, right?
No, not necessarily.
Not
That's not
necessarily.
how
It
it's
depends
actually.
how, it depends.
Do it tiered, right?
And if the
We would
community votes
examine
no,
our
we would
options
examine other
afterwards.
possibilities.
So I say, I think we've
I think we
had,
take a
you know,
vote.
we've heard everyone's
take a vote.
concerns. Am I correct?
Yes.
So I'd like to, okay, we've had the
We're at
motion.
5.10.
All in favor of item 5.10, please say aye.
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 Okay, so it's unanimous.
Public comment again?
We are tabling item 5.11 for today.
Oh, that's off the agenda.
Oh, it's not on the agenda, never mind, okay. We've heard about facilities. So, you know, at this point, before we get to the financials, since we've had a lot of discussion on an important issue, I will determine that we'll have another public comment period. So anyone wishing to come to the microphone to make any public comment on any issue, please feel free.
Still
Yes.
limited to 3 minutes, yes.
Okay. Well, I do appreciate that you guys are going down the path. I guess water under the dam is water under the dam. I mean, this is stuff that probably should have been done a year or two ago, and we can throw Linda Kay out and blame it all on her. But, you know, I mean, we got to start moving forward with this. You know, if John Jay has already done it and other schools have already done it, why are we not going down the path faster? You know, these are our kids we're talking about, and it's not a big chunk of money. You know, there is how much, you know, you probably have 10 or 20 million in the bank from the bond issue. Can reallocate some of that.
Not allowed to.
Yeah, talking about the elementary schools, we're talking $100,000 to $200,000 per school. We can come up with that somewhere. You know, we just need to be doing more than we're doing right now. You know, I think the superintendent coming on board has helped that process, so thank you for being here. And I just hope this moves forward quicker. You know, it's plain and simple.
Okay.
Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
and we do appreciate your comments. We appreciate the concerns. Does anyone else have any comments or questions or feedback, ideas on what you've heard? Okay, well, feel free to contact us with any of that at a later
Yes.
point in time.
Also, I just
okay.
want to mention one thing is also, you know, like Christine said, tomorrow at the budget presentation time, if you have any comments, you definitely can raise that then too.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to move on to the financials. Has everyone seen the claims auditor's report?
Yep.
Okay, may I have a motion to approve that report on item
I move
item
7.1.
7.1?
I move.
I will second. Are there any comments or questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Notice of future meetings. Our next meeting will be next week, Wednesday, March 21st. Here in the Academic Commons, we will be having another three budget presentations: technology, athletics, and facilities, operations and maintenance. Following that, we'll have a meeting on March 28th, another budget meeting with non-instructional revenue and tax rate and contingency budget presentations. So may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
A second
Second?
to adjourn
All in
at
favor?
10:44.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned at
10:44.
10:44 and a half.
10:45. Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.